Good day. I think we are working here. Oh, I'm so excited to get this stream working. Today is going to be all about Algorand. I've been hearing all about it. I don't really know much about the project. So I want to take today, I really want to spend a lot of time deep diving into some interviews, looking at the charts, getting familiar with this project, because if you're like me, if you are paying attention to the crypto space right now, I think we're all aware that blockchains in America or blockchains approved by America have strong narrative, especially if they don't have capital gains. That's going to be huge. So Algorand is definitely one of the ones I hear about as an American-made blockchain. So I want to check that out. So we're going to start with an interview from Blockchain Brad. This is about 3 years ago. If you're unfamiliar with Blockchain Brad, he's awesome. He hasn't been posting in a while. Blockchain Brad, I miss you, buddy. I hope you come back. You did good content. It wasn't like hype content. It was always quality. So let's get an idea of the beginnings of Algorand, even though this isn't the first interview, but just get some idea of where they were a few years ago, and we'll start going from there. My name is Token Chef. None of this is financial advice. Obviously, I'm a cartoon monkey. You'll see my biggest bags are my highest convictions right now. Bitcoin, most elegant monkey ever, ticker meme, Constellation DAG network, and of course, Quant. Hard to beat those. All right, let's check out the first interview from Blockchain Brad.
Hello, it's Brad Laurie of Blockchain Brad, and today we're speaking about all things Algorand. Yes, you would be familiar with this layer one blockchain, but they've been doing quite a bit lately, and it's time to catch up with them for an update. So firstly, let's introduce two members of that team. We have the COO. His name is Sean Ford. Sean, thank you for being here, mate.
Thank you for having me, Brad.
You're very welcome. And also we have the CPO. His name is Paul Regal. Paul, thank you also for making time to speak with us about what Algorand's doing.
My pleasure. Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome. Now, gentlemen, in the name of transparency, which is something very important to me, it's important all the community know I do not own Algorand, perhaps a mistake of mine right now. And also, it's important you know that this is purely about education and this is entirely free. This is about making sure we all get information, quality information from the source. Now, gentlemen, Algorand is not something unknown. Everyone knows right now that layer one blockchains are an important part of the landscape, and you certainly have been making sure you're iterating at present times. So let's pull it back, though, to the beginning. For anyone unfamiliar with Algorand, and both of you obviously have your expertise in various areas, but frictionless finance, that's the important term right now, and so much more technologically that underpins this. But would either of you like to comment on providing a nutshell statement? What is Algorand and why does it matter?
Sure. So Algorand is, I think, one of the first sort of next generation blockchain protocols that ultimately, was the brainchild of Silvio Micali, Turing Award winner, as well as a team of other very accomplished technical professionals out of MIT and a number of other universities around the world. The vision was really to try to create what was disruptive technology, but make it into something that would be widely adopted, usable, scalable, actually get to a place that it would improve the end user's experience, whether that's individuals or businesses, rather than detract from it. And by doing that, sort of manifested in a lot of the things that we've put into the protocol. But at the top level, it's really, having the scale and the security and really being decentralized, both to emphasize security and participation in a way that previous blockchains hadn't been. And so, why does Algorand matter? I think, certainly there's a lot of examples in current day people could point to in the financial world of centralized authorities having disproportionate amounts of power to the exclusion of what we'd call in the press the little guy, and sort of give the ability for the everyday person to be able to participate in economic systems with economic products. And in really better themselves and create a better future for themselves. And so Algorand really from the beginning was designed to be very broadly adoptable, permissionless, low barriers to participation, and as such, bringing it back to frictionless finance, really remove a lot of the things that got in the way of people being able to transact and exchange value effectively, that really overweighted that authority and that power to more centralized authorities rather than handing it back to the broader masses and the people who want to participate.
Got it. Okay. So obviously you're competing in a...
So far, all fluff. Every single thing I've ever heard from every chain.
Highly competitive arena, but you did come out relatively early when we look at others that are not even out yet. So in that respect, you mentioned some important words. Permissionless is a key feature. Then we talk about the POS model. That's obviously built into the integrity of several leading blockchains right now and platforms. But there's a lot more built into the engine as well we're going to explore today. Now, one of the things I'd like to talk about is the team. Firstly, you mentioned Silvio, who is a very, very respected and highly regarded, world-renowned engineer and developer and coder, more importantly. But what about the rest of the team? That's what I really want to get in the guts of. Some of the team perhaps we don't know about since we last spoke, and I spoke with Steve, the CEO. How is that developing? How is that growing? And what are the expertise of the different members that really bring it together to make this work?
So just quickly, I would say that we had the benefit of beginning, as we said, with Silvio, who's one of the OGs of modern day cryptography, and so because of that, he brought, I think, an incredibly talented technical team. So the challenge has been a couple of fronts. One is build a business team that approximates that same quality. So I think Brad, you've talked to Steve Kokinos, who's the CEO, and he's founded a number of companies. I joined fairly early after being in a number of startups as well as large scale tech organizations. Paul, came in soon after and brings a lot of expertise just around, adding some discipline and credibility to the delivery of actual tech and product in the world that we live in, which wasn't always the case. And so we've really emphasized building out, people that understand how to create, economic incentives, built out, obviously a number of people in the technical team that Paul can talk about, advisors that have come in to help us from the outside. Paul Milgram, for example, who won the Nobel Prize in economics, this past year as one of our economic advisors. We've added him to a very illustrious group of people who help contribute to how we think about approaching and solving problems. Mm-hmm. So, the Algorand team has grown to, we're north of 60, 70 people, and are really trying to double down to continue to develop really innovative and disruptive tech. And that's one of the things that Paul has the lead for.
Well, Paul, take it away, mate. What are your thoughts of building on what Sean's saying with regard to some of the key assets in the team right now, especially that you're coming out of the blocks and really showcasing what you can do with use cases and, more importantly, with applications that are being built on Algorand?
Yeah, I mean, so from a team perspective, we build on the things that you would expect in the blockchain space. So distributed systems, networking performance, database performance, those kinds of skills, cryptography implementers, that kind of thing. And to your point, those are the kind of foundational skills that we need to not just create a highly performant blockchain, but to create a smart contract platform that can support and kind of bring forward the kinds of use cases that you're talking about, whether they're DeFi or they're the non-fungible space or any of the others that are really starting to catch fire.
Yeah, and what I like about Algorand, I will say, is that you took the time, having known this protocol and obviously of Silvio when it was just emerging. I really was studying not just Toterin, but a lot of things that were happening around him. Since then, you've clearly been head down, bum up as a team, pardon the phrase, but that's just the reality. And you didn't rush these things. And that's what I think a lot of people have been looking for, making sure you get this team right and continue to move forward until you're ready. So in that vein, let's discuss the tech features, because they are arguably the things that set you apart. Right, the first one is the ASC1,
I've heard
your smart contracts.
I am excited because I heard about Algorand has a very different mechanism for consensus. So I'm very curious. I really am a big believer in Constellation DAG. So people that I know who like Constellation DAG also like Algorand. So there's got to be a reason.
Differentiate from all others, as I understand. So do either of you want to discuss that in detail?
Yeah, I could take that. And I guess the one thing I want to say about taking our time, we definitely have a very strong research core, led by Silvio and other PhDs in that area. But I think one of the things that sets us apart is not just having the research core, but balancing that with delivering software. While we want to make sure we get it right, we also want to make sure we are pushing features to the market. And I think that's been reflected in the advancement of the protocol since the launch about 2.5 years ago.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of the features themselves. So you mentioned ASC1s, which are Algorand smart contracts at layer 1, and they differentiate in a couple of ways. So the first one is the speed. So we don't have sort of second-class citizens when it comes to transaction types. Everything runs at wire speed. Everything runs at the full 1,000 transactions plus a second that Algorand supports, and that includes the smart contracts. So that's one very big difference right off the bat. Coupled with that is the cost of the smart contracts. So similar to the speed, the cost is the same as well. Whether you're sending a simple payment transaction or you're calling the most complicated smart contract on the chain, it is the exact same cost, which is currently a milli algo, which is on the order of 1/20 of a cent, half a cent, something like that.
So cheap and fast comparatively.
Yeah, that's right. So it's very cheap, very fast. And so then the question becomes, well, what about expressivity, right? Like, can I actually build anything interesting here? And the answer is absolutely. The folks that are building on Algorand are building everything from, a Uniswap type AMM to a MakerDAO type collateralized loan system with a stablecoin built in, to NFT type solutions. It really runs the gamut. Opulus was an application that just launched recently as well, doing collateralized loans against music rights, which is a very cool application. And all of these things can be built on Algorand and take advantage of that speed and cost. And I think that's a really big thing that is catching the eyes of developers, not only that are coming into blockchain and looking for, hey, which blockchain should I be building on, but even for those that are already in the space and they already have applications that are suffering from some of the downsides of the underlying platform that they're on.
It's a great point. And also, the fact that you are fundamentally faster and you're working on the scaling solutions as well compared to other blockchains and cheaper. That's a big deal when it comes to business. And those entries now, you mentioned Opulus as one example. So are you finding now that because you've made the effort to really build this properly, and you see also there's a genuine market right now and a big buzz for blockchain and even crypto, are you seeing more of a transition or more devs coming towards Algorand because of those real things? Because we want to see this application, we want to see this protocol build into something that is valuable for business and enterprise, and for the future of not just DeFi but CeFi and everything between.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll say two things. Like, one, I think, sure, people definitely recognize the underlying tech and gives them an advantage in their business. It's a tangible, adds to their value prop and their bottom line when they're building applications. But I think they also see that, we are about building enduring value. We are about getting it right. We're here for the long haul. And people are responding to that in terms of, when they're looking for an underlying blockchain to basically be a technology partner with, in the way that you can partner with a public and permissionless blockchain. But it's an important part of their stack, and they want to have confidence in the underlying tech. And I think we're providing that as well.
Yes, I would agree. Let's explore that further. And congratulations on how far you've come with the tech. Now, one of the things we need to understand more is the ASA, the Algorand Standards Assets. It's an important component. So do either of you want to take that away and give us some more information on what that is?
I can take that as well. When we were looking at building tokenization models within the platform, we looked at throughout the market and saw what was out there. And basically what we saw was there's a huge proliferation of standards around assets. But as it turns out, most people aren't using this huge proliferation. 70% of the market is using very few of the features. And in order to get them, you must write code, you must write a smart contract. And so they're copying, pasting, or they're trying to come up with a shorter way to be able to do that. And the complexity bar is a little bit high. And so what we wanted to do is take that and find a way to just cut out all of the complexity. And so what we came up with was what we call the Algorand Standard Asset, or the ASA. And that standard asset has the capabilities to mimic, just for frame of reference, the ERC20 standard, the ERC721 standard. You can do fungible, you can do non-fungible, you can do restricted tokens. And all of that is done with a single transaction to the network with 5 or 6 parameters, and your ASA is created. So it's actually at layer one, just like those smart contracts, it's at layer one. And so what does that give you? It gives you the same security model with your tokenized asset that we have with a native algo on the platform. It gives you the same.
For the record, this is 3 years ago, and I believe this is Algorand 2.0, and I think the newest version is 3.0, maybe even 4.0. So there has been updates since this interview.
Same speed. So just like with the smart contracts, you can transact with these assets at 1,000 plus transactions a second. The cost is the same.
And where it is now.
And so the complexity has really just dropped out of tokenizing an asset on blockchains. And we've gotten just really a huge response, honestly, from folks that are in the business of tokenizing assets, or that's a major part of what they're trying to do. The ease at which they can do that on Algorand and the speed and cost, it's really been a differentiator with the way people are approaching us.
Absolutely. And the standardization, will that apply to other blockchains as well? Because you mentioned Ethereum's various tokens as well, but clearly you're agnostic, I would imagine, in terms of your technical perspective, being a layer one as well. So will there be composability or compatibility or interoperability built into the future of Algorand as you network out into other layer ones?
Yeah, 100%. So we're a big believer in a multi-chain network. A multi-chain world. And we also believe that not only will there be many chains, but there's different reasons to be different places, and you're going to want to move around. And so, we've taken a really hard look at what's out there in the market in terms of bridges, both token bridges, so moving assets from chain to chain, but also, general message passing, whether that's I'm trying to trigger a smart contract on another chain and get a result back and use that on my chain. And there's a big spectrum there in terms of how these bridges are being implemented, from completely centralized bridges, which often make sense depending on the use case, to folks that are trying to get more and more decentralized. We have some technology coming out on our side that will allow building of completely trustless bridges in terms of understanding Algorand state. that allow us to effectively have a portable cryptographic proof that is very, very small, that you can, with certainty, know the state on Algorand. So think of it as the blockchain attests to its own state, rather than having to say, hey, validator set, or otherwise, please tell me what the state is on Algorand. You can do it directly through the chain. And that's just an example of how we're thinking about the interoperability problem. It can't just be on folks trying to build interoperability solutions. The layer one protocols have to be involved in this and have to have some ownership on making it easier and more trustless for these bridges in between.
Got it.
So
and
that's one of the things.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I would step back, if I may, give me a second. So I think, all of these things, I agree with Paul and how he's describing them. And I think, Brad, it comes back to something that you mentioned earlier, which is just thinking about friction and how that has gotten in the way of really, driving a lot of the components of what we see as where finance is headed. So just the reason that we're building what we're building, and I think the thing that's driving it is that what we saw was a couple of things. One, a real opportunity for the right type of blockchain with the right capabilities to be able to play in the financial world broadly. If you're too slow or you fork or there's all sorts of problems with the tech, no financial institution with any degree of credibility is going to jump right in and start to invest and try to transform how they either conduct their process, build their assets, et cetera.
Yeah, and let's talk about, Sean,
just a little side thought. This is one of the reasons why, I'm not really paying attention. Not that I'm not paying attention, but I'm not bullish on new L1s at the moment. I think we are in the utility cycle, utility moment, where utility projects that have been around for years, that have already developed these relationships, that already have the tech working, are the things that are going to be hitting this cycle. So that could be like an Algorand, that could be like a Hedera, that could be a Constellation, that could be an XRP. Something that already has these relationships. These projects that are just starting, that don't have it, although they may be low market cap, so you can take that risk and maybe you can play the chart well. But just in terms of overall real world adoption, I'm not playing that game anymore, man. I'm going for the stuff that's been around, that has these relationships built. And I guess you can include VeChain into that category too.
Talk about that in the context. No, I want to keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a point about CeFi in what you're saying. That's what I want to just add in.
That's all. So,
sure, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Brad.
I was just going to say that often we use terminology in the blockchain space as buzzwords, but the reality is there's a continuum between DeFi and CeFi, and you're positioning yourself right across that spectrum. I would argue.
You can see blockchain Brad too. There's no fluff, or not fluff. There's no hype. Not hype. Just straight talk. So I always appreciated this guy, even though sometimes the interviews are a little dry. But at least you learn about shit. I learned about a lot of projects through blockchain Brad. And they didn't necessarily pump because they weren't hyped, but I did learn a lot about a lot of projects.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you took the words out of my mouth. So, it's really funny. What we're seeing is, and the reason we're building what we're building, and the reason we're building the way we're building is based on what I'm about to say, which is we're seeing a massive convergence. If you look at DeFi, CeFi, central banks, and governments, all of them are coming together and really starting to create what we're calling a future of finance. What is the future of finance going to be? It's going to be inclusive. It's going to be decentralized. It's going to be trusted, right? It's going to be secure, all of these different things. And it's going to be easy to participate. And if you start thinking about that, that general belief of where finance is going has driven a lot of the principles Paul talked about. But, the interesting thing from our perspective is that the walls between what DeFi being a separate component of finance doesn't really make any sense anymore.
Exactly.
It's a part of finance. And the other interesting thing is, because of blockchain technology, it's fundamentally, especially with Algorand, redefining what finance is and where you would find finance. So let me give you the example. Let's say you think about, 15 years ago, if you talk about finance sectors, you're not really going to say online gaming comes to mind. And that's because it seems like, that's an interesting industry, but not a financial economy. And now you're looking at games that have tens of millions of users who are creating assets in the game, trading those assets for real currency and cryptocurrency, and it has become an economy. And so within video games, for example, there are micro economies that are larger in some cases than some countries. And so if you start thinking about finance as exchanging value securely, seamlessly, and effortlessly, breaking barriers down, then DeFi becomes an integrated part of CeFi and central banks. They start to take on some of those processes. DeFi becomes more trusted by taking on some of the things we see from CeFi. And to your point, I think Algorand is right at the intersection between what people used to define finance as and where finance is going. And we become the bridge that allows people to migrate back and forth between those two things, making them sort of one ecosystem rather than a bunch of fragmented parts.
That's really well said. And I think people should actually take that piece and record it and play it back a few times, because really it's about revolutionizing finance in this context. And perhaps OpenFi is going to be more of an apt term in the future, because even DeFi is conflating with CeFi. When we look even at the tech stack, when we look at exactly how they run, not everything even claimed to be DeFi is, because by nature, they're moving in the direction of business, they're moving in the direction of enterprise and in utility and users. So there's a lot of things going on, and you're not going to miss either anywhere in that pie or that opportunity as well, because you're situated where you are attractive to all those different components and industries, I suppose, all the way from the enterprise to the government to that, hardcore DeFi maximalist. I think it's attractive for different people in different ways. But let's pull it back a bit. One of the things that Paul said recently was about that stateless to state value prop with the bridging. That, I think, is something that we need to explore a little bit more, because that's a big deal when it comes to being able to work with and appease the other layer one blockchain. So let's start with Ethereum, gentlemen. Are you currently, or any of the devs in the team, liaising, working with, and making sure that there's that co-opetition, but also collaboration between various L1s too, because they have the network effects right now, gentlemen, and Polkadot's obviously building as well.
Again,
so how do you collab? How do you build, narratives that mean something together?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So certainly we are up to date and keeping up to date and looking at changes and approaches. It's a little bit harder on something like Ethereum to be like, who do I call over there to talk to, right? But certainly we are
if so, why?
Involved in the process of making sure we understand where they're headed, to make sure that we can converge at the points that are necessary. With folks like Polkadot, it's a little bit different, and I think there is a big opportunity there to talk to the folks that are actually building over there, and making sure that we're converging around some sort of standards. One of the promises of blockchain is this open and permissionless world, and currently that's true, but only within your blockchain, right? And so these bridges are important, but the layer one chains do need to have accountability over it, and that's what I think we're doing. And to your point of like, how do you maintain those sort of connections with those other chains? I think it's just time and effort, and making sure that we're doing similar things. The other thing about it is, I would guess that we would probably not get to a state where the blockchains are going to directly interact for any number of reasons, technical and otherwise. And so there's always going to be folks that are providing value add in between, whether it's via a validator network from a company like Ren or like Axelar, or a bridge like CodeFi, and Consensus, or some other sort of solutions. And so the important part to me is that layer ones are taking it seriously and just doing their jobs in terms of helping those guys out and making those solutions more trusted or more trustless, depending on your point of view.
I couldn't agree more. And also to that point, we've seen a lot of layer one white papers in 2017-18, but not many made it through. And now we see a very small number that have iterated, continued, even in that bear market. It was a tough time. With your runway, luckily you had that, but some just didn't survive, or some didn't emerge and still haven't yet, with a huge runway, arguably. So congratulations once again for being one of those leading layer ones. It does matter that we can see specific use cases for different, protocols. Yours seems to be very enterprise geared as much as it is for these new and leading applications coming on board. Now there's a big wave of applications in Algorand or we're sensing, and we'll talk about that later. But let's go back to the atomic transfers and rekeying, those two other parts that need to be discussed in terms of the technical value that underpins the protocol.
Yeah, sure. So, I'll take those. So atomic transfers are the ability within Algorand to atomically transfer assets, both from a large number of different assets, but also like multi-sender, multi-receiver. So you can basically package up any number of transactions. If any of them fail, they all fail. And while that's not particularly revolutionary from a concept, it does do a couple of things. On Algorand, and you've heard me say this before, this is at layer 1. So it's not smart contract. I'm not building a smart contract and grouping transactions and running a smart contract. This is a layer 1 primitive that can be used as a building block in any number of ways by any number of people. And so what does that mean? That means it's fast. That means it's cheap. It runs just like any other transaction on the network. So very powerful as a layer 1 primitive and easy to use.
If you didn't follow that, so if you needed to, I didn't understand, it's not like an atomic swap. Maybe it has that functionality, but the idea that you can batch transactions on the L1 without using a smart contract. So it's not, you don't have smart contract risk of someone coding something improperly and something going wrong. And that you have the cheapness of it being the same as just a normal transaction. That's a pretty cool feature. I like all this L1 stuff. Or it's like when you have these solid building blocks and then people can build more complicated tasks on top of it. I mean, that's super cool.
Can be put into applications where needed. And this is super important for folks. I mean, for folks, even, the easiest example is something like a bank settlement, where you need to make sure that the transfers going in and out both happen, and atomic transfers do that. Massive reduction in counterparty risk in a very easy way.
Got it.
Why atomic? Why using that? Every time you say atomic, I think atomic swap. So we're going from chain to chain, but I don't think they're referencing any other chain. I think all of that is pure Algorand transaction, but it's still cool.
On the rekeying side, so rekeying is something that's super interesting. A number of use cases, particularly around folks with high security needs, like custody providers, et cetera. But the idea is very simple. So in cryptography, you've got a public address with a private key. And what do you do if you feel like your private key might be compromised? What would you stress?
You'd stress.
You stress, right? Maybe you spin up a new address, send all your money over to the new address. Like,
exactly.
aha, I'm good now.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that's a reasonable thing to do, and it solves this sort of security issue. But let's just make a quick sort of mental map here. What if you had to change your bank account every day or every week? Not only is that a big pain, which blockchain makes easier because it's much easier just to spin up a new address and transfer it. But the bad part isn't necessarily the operational overhead for you. It's how many people do you have tied to that address, to that bank account that you're either making payments from, or you've registered it with KYC or whatever the thing is that has been attached to your public address that is now gone and you have a new one. And let's say you're a custody provider. That sort of doubles down on this problem, because anytime there's a transaction out, I got to sweep all the money into a new account, right? So you get this big string of public addresses changes, and it just creates this wake in order to get the security value of changing keys. And so what does rekeying do? Rekeying allows you to change the underlying key that allows you to spend and keep the same public address. So in the case of, hey, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with the security over my private key, you don't have to change your address at all. You send a transaction, rekey the account. It's a very literal name. We weren't particularly clever with that one. Rekey that account to a new spending account. Now you've got your safety. You have zero operational overhead, and it just makes it easier.
That's pretty fucking cool. That's really cool. If you didn't understand the idea that if you have a wallet with your private key that's got 10 different tokens in there or whatever you got in there, and then you feel like your private key has been compromised, or maybe you saved it in the wrong place, or maybe you lost your paper wherever you put it, whatever, you felt like your private key is compromised. The solution that I've always had, or anyone has always had, is just create a new address with a new private key and move all your funds one by one into that new place, which can be quite annoying, and especially if you're in a moment of panic where maybe someone is draining your account. It's a little bit terrifying and hard to do it quickly. But he's saying, so if you lose your if you feel like your private key is compromised, you can keep the same public address and just create a new private key, and the public address will get a new private key attached to it. That's super interesting. A little bit terrifying to me as well. I mean, I'd be scared to do that, but that is pretty cool. And if he's saying for like large institutions that are responsible for many different people, for them to be moving address after address to a new private key would be daunting, high risk. That is a super interesting feature. I don't know if any other project does that. I've never heard that before.
So this is another feature that, again, is at layer one. And in fact, it's built into, cool. You can do it like inside of a pay transaction. So you can literally keep your keys cold all the time. Mm-hmm. It's another building block that runs fast, cheap, and is a building block for companies to use inside of their applications to gain additional value in a very simple way.
And I think, adding to that, Paul, the fact that you've done that and built that into the very base of the protocol means that more mainstream people can come in with that peace of mind and with an easier experience, because you want to build the protocol out for real use case. And if you've done the rekeying right from the outset, I think that's going to be, a significant boon for the whole development.
I mean, that is a cool feature, cool function. But as a user, I would be terrified to implement that, especially the first time. I mean, especially every single time. Like, would be terrified.
A cycle and the increasing usage and adoption of Algorand. And obviously,
personally, for me, I probably wouldn't do
looking
it.
at the flexibility and the continuity, they're two buzzwords that come out when you look exploring the rekeying.
I'd be nervous.
And arguably, this could iterate even further.
Yeah, I mean, and just to be kind of put a fine point on it, we have a very intentional technical strategy to have layer one primitives. To make it easy, to take away a lot of the complexity, and make it very easy, fast, and cheap. Now, that is you could go wrong there by just putting everything in layer one, right? And then, well, I've got this thing that is only useful in this particular area because I didn't do the right work to generalize it down. And so that's why I say it's very intentional. One, we know that this is a strategy we want to do. We want to keep things in layer one to make it easy. But two, we have to be really smart about it and really generalize these features out. And so the things that we have are the things that have the most generalizable power, can be used in the most ways with the most value, and really, I think have been received well by folks that are building on Algorand.
Absolutely. And Sean, I wanted to ask you about the next question that relates directly to the tech, and that is, how do you build out those partnerships? How do you build out and scale for use case? Because it's one thing to have everything ready and finite, as Paul's saying, and really hone in on those key assets that you need technologically. But that's nothing if you haven't got, the right tool suite and the right approach, and then, the right applications coming on, especially in that first wave that seems to be happening now. So let's discuss, organizing partnerships, how, and making sure that things are ready in that sense, and even just applications themselves.
Right. That's a good point. So I think, it speaks back to something that Paul referenced earlier on, which was just the idea that we're here to build enduring value. And I think we're here to build a very credible and growing and sort of vibrant economy. And so if you start thinking about partnerships and applications and the types of assets that you add through that filter, you really start to hone in on not the universe, while anyone can come, but in terms of allocating our time and effort has really been around finding partners and assets that will allow us to build the best infrastructure from an economic perspective that exists in the industry today. And so what does that mean? Well, at the end of the day, what we've seen is we've probably got, I would say 20 to 25 different stable coins that we have, been lucky enough to have on Algorand. Obviously, there's USDC, USDT. There's an Australian gold-backed stablecoin called MELD,
yes,
which is backed by the Melbourne Mint, and they're very innovative. Um, and we've got a number of, digital versions of actual currencies. You've seen signing a partner called Monerium, which is actually digital money in Europe. There's the euro, there's the pound. So we're seeing, a combination of actual, very, very solid means of exchange. Same thing goes with the types of assets that are being built. There's a lot built. There's a number of organizations that are in that CeFi space that are starting to find ways to tokenize or create digital products within their sort of financial portfolio. One is looking to build, a structured product against second mortgages in residential homes. Very massive amount of value there that they want to unlock and tokenize that tranche of loans. And there's a list of other folks that are looking to do similar things, whether it's tokenizing parts of their funds. One public announcement that we made some time ago, which is a really interesting case study, is the World Chess Organization is slated to do their IPO on Algorand. It'll be a hybrid IPO with us and with the London Stock Exchange. So we're seeing elements of convergence with those quality, regulated, good team, credible ecosystem partners that are coming to us more and more and more. And I think that, that again speaks to the quality of the product that we're building, but also speaks to the philosophy that we're using around the types of people that we want to be a part of the economy, so that when we activate a lot of the exchange that we're starting to see, there's a lot to work with, and people have confidence that they know they're coming to a growing and healthy ecosystem.
Yeah, and on that note, I mean, Paul, you might like to add onto this. There's a whole suite of, information and resources relating to the use case component, and it itemizes different industries, different verticals, where you really can see the potential of this. And even right now, the experimentation happening with building this out. And in that context, I wanted to ask you also, do you see, given that now mainstream businesses are tinkering with this, and even beyond that, clearly they see the value proposition of blockchain, but do you think that also, what's paramount to them is even beyond the blockchain itself? It's what those applications can do. It's so much more than just a blockchain. We hear that word used so much, but even in Algorand, that's just one component in itself.
For sure. I mean, I think most folks don't really, particularly larger businesses that we're talking to, aren't saying, hey, we would like to add blockchain to our products, like help us figure out what that means. They're saying we need to enable these properties. We need to enable and reach this new type of customer. We need to be able to accomplish these use cases, and we know we can do that with you guys. So, I mean, I think to your point, Brand, it's not about I need the technology. It's about I need the value props and the properties that the underlying technology actually provides.
Got it. And Sean, what about revenue?
I would add one.
Can you teach us a bit about that?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, no, mate, add it. Please, go ahead. I've been rude and interrupted again.
This is your show.
Well, no, mate, I wanted to ask, please add that information because it's valuable, because you are the source and that's what it's about. But in the context of, really making sure the mainstream can get those, can enter into this and remove those barriers of entry by the protocol, surely, the premise or one of the focus of the Algorand team is to build profit as well and be revenue generating, even though there's the permissionless open source context of the protocol. So differentiating between the protocol and the business. I want to ask about that, and please go ahead with your comment as well, Sean.
Oh, I guess what I was I'll just answer this question. I think that if you look at the sources of revenue, and I would say that the same way that we brought, I think, in terms of product discipline and delivery of product to market predictably, Silvio likes to say promise made, promise kept. I think that's something that we've done a very good job of as a protocol, really setting ourselves apart, I think, from a number of others in the industry. And that same attitude as it relates to developing product, the discipline has been brought in, I think, by the business team to say, well, how do we start to generate a business here? The business is not, let's build a protocol and let's launch a currency and the game's over, which we also see a lot of in the space. Ours has always been, how do we build the best technical, sort of foundation that is out there today? And then how, as a company, do we start to pivot towards being a project that built a core protocol to a company that is building interesting ways to use the core protocol or build on the core protocol.
Right.
And we do that with, we've got a number of, I would call additional business ideas that we are actively working on and that we'll announce and love to talk to you about in the future that we think are revenue generating. We do, have a number of opportunities. We are working on something called a co-chain that Sylvia wrote a paper on, and that we see opportunity there. And then we make investments as well, across a number of fronts. So I feel like we are trying to build the same diversification of business discipline into the company that we brought with the product discipline as we started launching technology that we think appeal to the different constituents we were talking about earlier.
Right. And what's great is that the token itself, often various teams, in the space who are perhaps less transparent, they don't like to touch on the token. But in this instance, you see that protocol to enterprise or protocol to business a crossover. And that token does genuinely represent both worlds. It literally is the fuel, that protocol fuel that moves into the potential for experimentation and use right across the whole spectrum and potential of, I guess the platform is the better word in this instance because it represents the platform, not just that protocol. Now, in that context, I wanted to ask either of you if you could comment a bit more on the staking rewards that are built in, because that's a feature that comes in with a lot of the POS models, as you'd appreciate, and it really does also factor in for more of the logic that's built into the tokenomics and the token design.
What is the stable?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to it from a technical perspective, but we're not involved in the tokenomics or any.
But it was just the staking one to talk about, because that has a real effect right across the platform.
Yeah, for sure. So the way the rewards work technically in the Algorand blockchain is we reward basically for holding algos. And so, from a standpoint of the behavior that we're looking for is participation in the Algorand sort of ecosystem, and that's the model that we have now. Silvio's put out a governance proposal to the foundation and to the community to look at, which is a little bit more involved in terms of staking and some additional rewards there, like specifically locking up tokens over multi-month, multi-year kind of periods. And having that tie towards additional monetary governance or policy governance in the blockchain, but that's at the proposal state right now. Okay. So in terms of the actual the current rewards, it's really about participating in the ecosystem.
Okay,
yeah,
I think that's
a long-term swing.
I think the thing that I would underline is the goal here, and the way the protocol was designed from the beginning was to sort of rapidly decentralize and do it, however, in a responsible way. And decentralization in this particular context is one of broad participation, broad voting, broad interest, to Paul's point. And I think that, the foundation ultimately is responsible for these things. Anyone in the community can make a proposal and make suggestions on how to make that happen. But ultimately, the goal is participation and engagement of the community. And that's what I think has been the underpinning of how things have been structured to this point by the foundation. And I expect that if anyone's watching this.
Honestly, I don't really understand community in utility tokens. I understand it in meme tokens, which is why Most Elegant Monkey Ever is the best meme token ever. But utility tokens, I don't get it. Like, you want random people who buy tokens who do not give a shit about your chain or how it works and don't understand it. Even if they care, they don't understand it. You want them to vote on what to do. And even if they vote on what to do, you still have to hire someone. You still have to have a centralized people hire someone, and then that person do the work that's the decentralized DAO implement. I don't get this part of it at all, because it's not, unless maybe when AIs are functional enough that the DAO can put in some contract call to a decentralized AI, that makes it more interesting. I'm always on the thought that you have to have a centralized human being implement the work that the people are voting for. But maybe we're not far away from the AI actually doing all this shit. That would be pretty cool, actually.
That has an idea in the community and they want to make a proposal, I would encourage them to do so.
And that's what's
You're
great
asking
about that
token
underlying
holders,
consensus as well.
just
Sorry, the
dummies who are
consensus
just buying
algorithm is it
tokens
was
trying to get rich,
always designed for
to
voting
make
and for
to
democracy
make
from the
smart
outset.
decisions, to make
And
elegant
I think
decisions
that's
about the
also what's
chain.
attractive even in DeFi right now, because it resonates with that democratic and decentralized
Absolutely.
tenant. With regard to the tool suites, I wanted to ask you, Paul, consensus, it acts as a tool suite and toolbox for Ethereum. We have Parity, that really supports the work that's being done in Polkadot. What about Algorand? What's being done there? Is there a specific entity that really can build out the toolbox for Algorand as you keep going forward?
Yeah, so I mean, from a perspective of the technology, similar to Parity for Polkadot, I think that's a reasonable analogy for Algorand Inc. that we are building the technology and continuing to move that technology forward. Consensus, on the other hand, is a little bit of a different model. They're almost sort of like an investment model, and I can pass off to Sean for the various things available in our ecosystem that are more similar to a model like Consensus.
I like AMP right now. I'm going to keep my
So,
eyes on
Sean,
AMP.
if you want to take that away, because my understanding was that Consensus is also involved in various technical toolboxes and endorsing things and supporting things like Truffle, etc., working with teams and devs.
It should be like grants or VC
Yeah.
arms and those kinds of things.
Yeah. So I think that, there's a whole bunch of different things that people can do. I mean, look at the end of the day, again, the foundation's job is to establish sort of clear principles for the sort of the token economics and monetary policy, and then encourage, I think, in the right way, people to engage and start to build on the protocol. There've been a number of accelerators and a number of things they've done to enable sort of, the average developer to start to get up and get going through grants. There's a formal process there. I know that there's, also a number of other infrastructure investments that they've made to enhance the capabilities of the protocol and the ability for people to join and participate. There are, and then there's a number of partners that participate as well that are a part of a very broad partner program to help get people going, get them ramped up, get them developing.
Here a little bit.
Now, what about the state of the GitHub, for example? You are proudly permissionless and open source in many respects, but you are also trying to build out the business side of this for businesses to be that sort of source, the code that can be adopted. So how transparent is everything? If a dev wants to go in and start to explore what Algorand is?
Yeah, 100%. So we're 100% open source. We are using approved OS.
I mean, that's cool. That's what always turned me off from Hedera or HBAR was the patents on it. But that's cool. It's good. It's
OSI licenses. OSS licenses. So we're, anyone can go in and play around and fork it and play, or add their own PRs, and however they want to get involved. We do have a pretty involved developer site, developer.algorand.org, which allows people to sort of get up to speed on how to not only how Algorand works, but how to build on top. So I would suggest starting there, but for sure they could go straight to our GitHub and get in there. We love it.
Well, Paul, we've seen recently a lot of rug pulls. We've seen a lot of forking. We've seen a lot of infighting, especially with the emergence of governance tokens. And
wait until 2025, and you get into meme coins blockchain, Brad. Then you'll see rug pulls,
mining, that sort of thing. So does it ever worry you though that the code itself can be forked? And people can use this in different parts of the world, as we've seen as well, as opposed to just making sure that things are proprietary and are protected, which would not be in the spirit of that continuum CeFi to DeFi.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to look at this. A lot of the the forking and the so-called vampire attacks that we've seen recently are really more about DeFi applications than they are about layer one infrastructure, because when you're talking about layer one infrastructure, it's complicated. It's complicated. It's hard. Not to like move forward, but just to keep it up and running and working right. And moving it forward is a whole other thing. And I think we've seen examples in the ecosystem of forks at the layer one level, but they're mostly Bitcoin related. And even there, you haven't seen a whole lot of like value flow. I think the bottom line is if you're going to run a layer one blockchain, you better know what you're doing. And if you really know what you're doing, you're probably going to build your own because you're a really smart person and you probably have strong opinions.
Yeah.
So I think if you are building a product that is open source, or I'm sorry, that is meant to build a borderless economy and to enable frictionless finance, people have to be able to trust it, especially if it's decentralized. No one's in charge. Yeah. If you're not open source, and frankly, if you're not using sort of a standard license, I think that's something to be concerned about if I was a user of that system.
Absolutely. And it's great to know that you are that layer one and you're sophisticated and complex tech, because as you've made it very clear, it's very unlikely that there's going to be success in anyone forking this, which gives a lot of people peace of mind when they question that, knowing that they've seen applications that have forked. And what about the licensing or the regulation? That's a tough one. And I know from the start, you guys definitely took this very seriously. You had to. And regulated also in the US, as I understand. So congratulations on that. That's a serious achievement, given so many are not. So in that regard, what about regulation, and compliance? I wanted to touch on that globally. Have you made sure you've crossed all your T's, dotted all your I's, so that you can make sure that in every industry, every area of the globe, you can be competitive and you can permeate, those regions?
Yeah. I think we've taken that incredibly serious from the beginning. The way we've structured, sort of all aspects of the organization has been to, follow and go well beyond whatever requirements exist in whatever jurisdiction. So I think, again, back, Brad, to if you have serious people that have built businesses before, understand how to build businesses and build enduring value, I think, we took all the steps to make sure that this was going to be handled in the right way, and took it incredibly seriously and continue to do so for sure.
That's good to know. Now, gentlemen, I wanted to get really deep into what's happening right now. I mean, we talked perhaps a little bit too much, my apologies, on all of the tech, but that is that core integrity that we need to know is definitely working well right now. And from that, is everything that comes forth 2021 and beyond. So we discussed the term use case, and there's a whole lot of different potentials there, from collateralized loan obligations, credit, atomic swaps. We talked about that, subscriptions, escrow, and so much more, automation of disbursements. So in that sense, what excites you both most? If you could think of one thing that really is predominant right now that's coming forth, where the devs and the enterprises are starting to really play, what would it be? Because we certainly see that happen with Ethereum with things like social tokens, NFTs as their buzzwords. Surely you have your own.
Well, I was going to start with a slightly different theme, but on point, I think, which is the thing that excites me the most about Algorand and the way we've brought, and what we're seeing because of, I think, the way that the tech is and the way the ecosystem is the ability for anybody to participate. I mean, if you go back and look at, early Algorand messaging, it was about banking the unbanked. There was a lot of discussion about that as an example of how do you give equal access to anyone in the world that wants to participate in some form of future prosperity. How do you do that? And so that might sound very pie in the sky, and doesn't that sound great?
This year. So obviously, Sean, in the context of more recent announcements, you discussed some of the things that, and you hinted there's a lot going forward. What about those more recent announcements, perhaps, that people could understand are unfolding right now and are relevant in 2021?
So hopefully we get deeper into the actual change itself.
So I think, first, there's just to level set. I mean, we've got over 500 different companies that are sort of actively engaged in various stages of building on Algorand right now across the different sectors that we talked about. So there's a fair number there. In terms of the recent announcements, look, I mentioned Mazzalo, which is Xfinite. It's the DApp that is being built first. And so that is a fairly massive opportunity given the partnerships they have, the size of the market in India, the ability to start to engage in real partnerships with a country that has 1.3 billion, some massive number of people who could certainly benefit from a decentralized and permissionless blockchain. So there's that. We also launched, as we've talked about, continue to push forward with Meld and their gold-backed stablecoin, and helping to provide transparency in the supply chain, not just for the trading of the stablecoin, but also in the supply chain itself. Announced a company called Instamatch, which is essentially matching lenders and borrowers in a regulated fashion to partner them so that people can find liquidity needs and get what they need around their cash deposits, et cetera. That's a recent announcement. And I think Opulus is something that you mentioned earlier. That's a foundation. Foundation did a grant with Opulus. And really, if you start thinking about artists' rights and the ability to use technology to leverage those rights globally, that is a place for massive innovation and adoption. Again, in the same way that Mazalo is doing it for their content, the people who engage with their content. On the other side of the coin, there's a lot of room to have people at scale be able to have greater ownership over the things that they make and create, and be rewarded appropriately for that. So I think those are just some of the quick, easy ones.
All right, let's call that a day on this. What did we learn? Not much, honestly. Not the information I was hoping to learn from this. But let's get something that's a little more current. And by current, I mean like 2 weeks ago. And get another interview from, I believe it's the CEO. Oh, there's the OG. That one with the woman I saw. 7 months ago. Here she is.
Đầu tư vào nệm là một quyết định rất là quan trọng, ảnh hưởng trực tiếp tới sức khỏe và kế hoạch tài chính của bạn.
Và ở tại các cửa hàng thì thực tế là
Okay. Just for give you where I'm thinking right now. For me personally, right now with Bitcoin, I'm still a little bit bearish. We did get a dump. I was thinking this dump was going to occur. I don't know if it's the full dump. And I have been taking too many cuts on stop losses. So I'm not trading at this moment. I tended to trade breakouts. I don't trade chop. And this chop is screwing me up, and I'm learning a lot of lessons about it. Although it did, I thought it was dumping here. I tried to take a short trade over here with a target down to the 94.7. And I got stopped out, of course. But then our dump gets me right to my point. It's so frustrating how that happens sometimes. But I am not chasing. I am in no leverage trades at the moment because I learned my lesson. Don't fucking trade chop, dude. That you're not a chop trader. I don't trade range. So I'm just chilling. I do think another dump is coming. I'm still short-term bearish. Of course, long-term bull. I'm always a long-term bull. Looking at Algorand, personally for me, if we dump, I'm going to be expecting, where did I draw my funnel? I have a short-term funnel. There's my short-term funnel. Okay. So again, I trade breakout. So if I'm looking for a dump to occur, because I'm always going to be looking at Bitcoin. So I'm not going to trade Algorand for a bullish move if Bitcoin is bearish in my view right now. So Algorand to me does have a setup. It does have a setup that I would consider trading. If I'll watch Bitcoin tightly, and maybe I'll do another stupid thing and take a trade during this chop range. But I would trade Algorand down to the 1860. And if we look at a higher time frame, we do have a potential head and shoulders right here. We got a shoulder, we got a head, we got another shoulder. And using a neckline as this key level of 34, aka 35 cents, I could do it. I should just make it. Just make it even numbers. Even numbers are always good because people trade even numbers. Okay. So if I'm assuming the neckline is 35, which it totally seems fair to be put on that spot. Then our target for this breakout would be 8 or right around 19 cents, which coincides with my target for my HVF funnel. Gets me down to the 19-cent mark. So that gives it a little more validity to me. So I wouldn't be buying Algorand right now for the bullish case. Unless, of course, Bitcoin takes the turn. You know, if Bitcoin goes the other way, then okay, we're all on board. But I still think Bitcoin's not over. I haven't been on Twitter today, so I don't know if mass panic is in. I don't think it is. I'm sure I would see that right now. We got a strong candle from BTC right now, though. That's good. But I really, like, Bitcoin needs to break. We need to get above 104 before I'm going bullish. Yeah, 104. We get to 104 with a strong candle, I'm bullish on Bitcoin again. But until that point, I know we could revisit 90. If we got a bull flag forming, if this is a bull flag, then there's no problem. We could be hitting 88. We could be hitting 90 again before we pump. Where's the other one? I have another one where it's like a, oh yeah, like that. Maybe this could be bottom. Right now, I'm just confused on Bitcoin, honestly. So I'm not really doing any trading. No short-term trading, at least. All right, let's see who we got. CEO Stacy Warden. So this is a very recent interview, popping up 3 weeks ago. Totally different perspective. Let's see where Algorand is now at this point in the cycle.
I'm good. I'm delighted to be here. I'm very excited. You know, this podcast has been a little bit problematic for me because my CTO has been on 4 or 5 times, John Woods, and our CMO, Mark, has also been on. And so they're like, oh, you know, we've been invited to All in Crypto a couple of different times now. How about you, Stacy? Have you been invited? I'm like, oh, no, you know, no. Oh, and then Mark says, oh, really? I've been invited too. So they're casting some shade on me for not having been on now. So now I'm very happy to join their ranks.
Do you know the phrase "saving the best for last" comes to mind?
Nice.
That's what I'm gonna.
Just
Good
don't
move.
tell John or Mark that I said that.
I'm
but
totally
no,
going to say that. I'm totally going to use that.
of course, we're over the moon to have you on. I think every Algorand video that I put out there, somebody asks to get you on. So we're over the moon that we can finally do this. And I'm really looking forward to sort of getting into Algorand, a little bit about yourself. And I think the best place for us to start is with yourself. You've got a remarkable career across finance, development, and technology, from the likes of JP Morgan to the Milken Institute. How did you actually end up at the Algorand Foundation? We tend to see a lot of people from perhaps the financial sector, certainly the technology sector, transition to the distributed ledger sector. But how did you end up here? I think that's a fascinating story to get into.
Yeah, you know, as you said, I think, had a job in almost every aspect of finance. I ran the small cap market for the NASDAQ. I looked after governments for JP Morgan. I was at the US Treasury Department, worked in the debt office.
That's cool.
So I've been at 2 different think tanks. And so I think I've got a pretty well-rounded view of how financial sector, works. And I was at the Milken Institute and crypto was kind of a side hustle for me there. And after 8 years with Mike Milken, I decided that crypto was getting just bigger and bigger and bigger. And I decided that I needed to do it full time. It was kind of like a, blah, blah, or get off the pot moment for me, right? A little bit. So you're either in or you're not in. And so I decided to leave the Milken Institute, and I stayed with them on a part-time basis and was exploring opportunities in crypto. And I had a couple of clients, and I was already on the board of the Global Blockchain Business Council. And I was headhunted to be on the board of the Algorand Foundation. And I was not very aware of Algorand, actually. I had heard about it, but I wasn't super knowledgeable of it. And so when I started doing research on it, I thought, I had that same feeling that I had when I first learned about Bitcoin. This one really could be the one. This really could be the.
You mean that feeling when I heard about Most Elegant Monkey Ever on Pump Fun? I was like, oh shit, this is the one. Stay elegant.
Solution to. I'm sure we'll talk about these things to the things that I was hoping from crypto. And so I joined the board. When you join a board, you're giving your name and your reputation to the organization. So I did do a lot of due diligence on Algorand before I joined. And then I was on the board for a few months, and they decided to make a change with the executive management team, and they made me the CEO.
Wow, fantastic. And with your transition from, you came from the sort of Milken Institute and obviously the traditional financial space, when you looked at sort of Algorand, or you looked at the crypto space and were kind of attracted to it, did you see it being the kind of, what was the thought there? Was it, you thought this was going to be the evolution of what you were already doing in the traditional financial sector or the technology sector? What sort of really attracted you to, getting off the pot, so to speak, and getting involved with this industry? What was the kind of thought there?
So I have always believed a couple of things. And, most fundamentally, I think that the private sector needs to drive growth. And so that means that, and a well-functioning financial sector is key to that. So for me, for a country or a community to develop, it has to be private sector led, and finance is a really important underpinning of that. And so the formula that I kind of believe in there is that if people have access to other outlets for their savings than just bank accounts, and they can invest in companies, well, then those companies can take that savings, they can hire people, they can grow, they can have profits, and that will generate more household savings, and more household savings will then invest in companies, and you can get this virtuous circle going. But the more I actually worked in finance, and I worked in many developing countries as part of JP Morgan, actually, working with them on how to strengthen their capital markets, how to strengthen their payment systems, it became increasingly clear to me that there were these very interesting problems and bottlenecks in traditional finance. In some African countries, for example, you have to have a letter from another bank customer before you can open a bank account. I mean, stuff like that. And so I care very much about financial inclusion and access to capital. So when I first learned about Bitcoin, I thought, this is it. This is the answer. I mean, this is, payments can be made right away. The fees aren't going to be so, I bought into this idea of digitally small payments being made on Bitcoin. I didn't think of it initially so much as a store of wealth, but I thought of it as a good alternative. And the worse the government, the worse the central banking authorities, the better Bitcoin would be. And so I started very much in a Bitcoin mentality, the way that I think many of us did. And then as that evolved, and I came to realize that Bitcoin is a very interesting store of value, but it's not performant enough to serve all of these other kinds of use cases that I thought were very important. And then, of course, Vitalik came along and Ethereum came along. And then I started thinking, that started opening my eyes to all of and then, then I was like hooked, basically.
It's kind of like entering the matrix, isn't it? You've taken the right pill, and now you're kind of, everything's starting to make sense with what this technology is actually capable of. Certainly smart contracts were a big one for me. Algorand, I think, really makes a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. When we look at Bitcoin and what its promise was in regards to being a peer-to-peer cash, I'm not convinced that is ever going to be the case unless, in fact, it ended up on, being tokenized on blockchains, and then there's a whole argument about that. But something like Algorand really brought performance to the table and actually added a whole load of capabilities to what this industry spawned out of. And certainly when people talk about decentralization, I know at the moment, Algorand's currently going through some changes in regards to staking, how that's going to be done. Maybe you could talk a little bit on that. I know I touched on it with John a little bit, but what's your kind of take on the undergoing changes that Algorand's going through as it relates to staking and really furthering decentralization and empowering people?
We all know that job interviews can be scary, especially when you don't know what to expect. But what if you had an assistant who knows all the answers?
So I really do believe in this technology more broadly. And of course, I believe predominantly in Algorand, but I think, to not lose that broader idea of crypto as a solution to some of these real problems that we have in traditional finance. And, we can talk more about exactly where I think crypto can make inroads and work cooperatively with traditional finance. But for Algorand in particular, it's a very performant chain, right? So one of the most important things about it is that transactions are instantly final. So there is this no kind of fork competition, soft fork kind of thing that happens over a period of, several minutes on these other chains, or even like a couple of seconds is going to be too long. So we do have this idea that when you make a transaction, it's final. This has, as you can imagine, really important consequences for financial sector applications. In addition to that, it can compete with Visa in that it can do 10,000 transactions per second, and Visa kind of clocks in at around 7,000 transactions per second. So we know that we can handle the throughput of success. And I personally am a little bit tired of like pilots everywhere. Like if you can't build this thing for scale from the beginning, then you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. So we think we're pretty geared to the scale. Success is not going to be our demise. We can handle all of the scale that we can bring. And so, and as you said, I mean, I do feel like you tempt the gods a little bit every time you say this. So I don't love saying this, but we've not been down for a second, as you said earlier. So I think we have the goods to deliver. And
look at Trump. Darn.
Because this chain is very performant and it is very lightweight. Like, for example, you used to be able to run a participation node just on a Raspberry Pi. Now it has gotten a bit, faster, and the requirements are a bit heavier. So you need to be running a high-end laptop. But the initial ethos of this was very much in the idea of permissionless finance, permissionless participation, and that if you were going to participate in the ecosystem of Algorand, then as a good citizen in that ecosystem, you should run a node and you should stake algos and uphold the security, do your part to uphold the security of the network. Like that's your job Rupert, as it turns out, people respond to monetary incentives. I don't know if you ever noticed this in your crypto
Absolutely.
life, but there is this sense in which people like to be rewarded for doing things. And so we were last to this, I think, idea that people need to be incentivized monetarily to do their part to uphold the security of the network. But we have some advantages now in that you can do this in a very lightweight way. The minimum balance is not very high. It's 30,000 algos. And if you don't have 30,000 algos, you can participate in a pooled solution. You won't be slashed if something happens. So you're not locking up your algos. You can withdraw them at any moment and use them for something else if you want. You won't, of course, be counted and be eligible to receive those rewards for those algos that you pull out, obviously. But we tried to keep this kind of freedom, decentralized ethos in actually the way we stake. And so we go live this month. So I don't want to put an exact date down because the very smart engineers over at Algorand Technologies are delivering this. We're just, helping with the community element of it and the tokenomics of it, of course. But yeah, this thing will go live in Q1, and we are really looking forward to it. We're expecting a tremendous amount of participation.
Yeah, we'll be participating. I know you spoke to Egon off camera there. He has not one, but 2 nodes set up in his house.
Does he? Okay.
A little bit of convincing to get him to do that because he lives in quite a hot climate. But the setup was very easy. The sort of hardware that we needed. Really, anybody can get their hands on this hardware if they actually wanted to run a node. And actually, I think very importantly, the barrier to entry from a kind of stake point of view, 30,000 Algorand, I think is very achievable. And of course, that's not the only option. If you want to stake, you're not going to miss out.
Algo is a quarter right now.
I think Algorand is doing.
You can join a ready pool if you want to do it as well,
$750?
and then you can stake as little as 1 algo if you want, and you'll have a choice of ready pools to choose from.
That's
so it's pretty.
$7,500.
We try to make it pretty as inclusive as we possibly can.
And I think that's what's at the heart of this industry, or certainly originally started at the heart of this industry. Satoshi created this protocol and said, "Look, you can mine and take part in this with your computer." Obviously, we know that the route the space has gone now. And there's that kind of constant dilemma when you add things to these protocols that the hardware gets ever kind of more taxing. However, I think Algorand's done an amazing job, regardless of all the things that they're doing, with still keeping the barriers to entry very low. And that's one thing I absolutely love about you is you're very proud of what Algorand is doing, what it's achieved. It's got 100% uptime, which a lot of blockchains can't say. It's got this kind of forkless model. There's a million and one reasons. The scalability issue. I love the phrase that you brought up there, that success isn't going to be your downfall. I think Ethereum and a lot of other chains out there, not to take anything away from Ethereum, really suffered from success. Too many people using the chain. It's too expensive. I know when I did my books a few years ago, and
Like really your own, not with anybody else, help, not a sub host under anybody else, but running your own node. So we're going to try to make that as easy as possible. And of course, we'll get feedback about things that aren't clear, and then we'll upgrade that documentation.
I'm very excited to see. I mean, I think there's going to be huge participation in this. I know not just myself that set up a node, a number of people. We're talking, I need more hands to count them all, that are actually also getting involved. Very excited about it. Governance is always an interesting area for me to talk on, because it's such a complex thing to try and do. And there's so many theories about how it should be done, how it shouldn't be done. What should there be an incentive? Should there shouldn't? So it's a really complex task you guys are under sort of taking. So I really am excited to see how it all progresses and follow the journey for Algorand. Let's talk about some.
I mean, so are we. Like, if we want to upgrade the software on the protocol now, it's pretty easy to do. The foundation has a lot of algos staked, and so the foundation. So they say, okay, this software upgrade's coming. We upgrade our software, and like we're almost there. And then very competent large holders of algos are also participating. So it's like they can make 10 phone calls or 20 phone calls, and it's kind of done. And so when we enter this world now, which is coming very quickly,
is that what we're proud of? That's why I don't get this governance bullshit. So basically, she's saying we have a lot of algo staked. Whatever we want, we can do. Well, that doesn't sound very decentralized. It's just, I don't get all this fucking fake governance crap. I don't get it. I'm either investing into the company that runs the token because I believe in them as investor, or I believe in their vision, I believe in their experience. I mean, this woman seems very intelligent. She has good experience. So I would be buying Algorand for her or for the team, not for the random stakers.
Decentralization, then everything is going to need to be, we're still going to need that 90% voting to do any kind of software upgrade. I'm talking about the core protocol here, not what the foundation's up to. So decentralization, it's a we hope that the foundation algos become much, much less of the total stake, right? So we're targeting a very low, manageable, but low number of foundation algos to be part of the total staked algos. So in that world, it's a little scary.
And then I don't understand. So let's say the what is this? The central Algorand company, their Algorand stake, she wants to get that less of the supply. Okay, so let's say they hold 5% of the supply or 10% apply at some point. But then a decentralized governance votes on something that's actually going to hurt the Algorand company. And are they just going to be like, okay, that's fine. We'll follow this bad implementation that the decentralized governance voted for? Like, how's that going to work out in the future when it gets to that point, whether it's for Algorand or anybody else?
Because then, there's a lot more cats to wrangle, and it's a lot harder to do if you do need to do something like a software upgrade, right? So, but it will be a very adult problem to have, because then we'll be a very decentralized chain, truly. So, yeah, I'm so excited about 2025. I can't even tell you. It's going to be really great.
Yeah, I'm over the moon about sort of everything that's going on with Algo as a holder, as a fan, I guess, of the chain. It's very, governance again is always such a complex topic, and I'm looking forward to taking part. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. You mentioned something there. Maybe this is something you can talk on. Maybe it's something you can't. But in regards to
that's why I like Bitcoin, because there's no governance. It's like nothing's changing. This shit ain't doing anything. So I kind of like that. I like that about meme coins. There's nothing really to vote on. There's some community, maybe initiatives or marketing, but just because somebody agrees to that doesn't mean it has to follow through. The utility tokens, I don't get governance. I don't get it at all.
The foundation's Algorand holdings, are there any plans with that moving forward? Is that something you can talk on? Is that something we shouldn't sort of venture into? Are there any plans moving forwards with that?
Save time creating content and generate a high-quality clone.
Well, mean, the biggest plan is that we are committing now a lot of algos to for the next 2 years to reward consensus. So that took a big chunk out of the
Believe it.
overall foundation, treasury, as you can imagine. And I think when we get the governance, the reward, the grants program in a good state, then we expect to see a bit more money going to that, of course, right? Because we and the community is in agreement with this, that we want to make small mistakes first. So we're not giving out a lot of money, or they aren't giving a lot of money in its current manifestation. But if that starts working really well, then I'm expecting them to vote in larger, I should say not them, but you, since you're part of this, more money for grants and getting a bit more sophisticated around that. Otherwise, it's a bit BAU, I would say. We make sure that our investments have both a monetary value to them, but also an impact value to them. That's hard to get always exactly right, but we are out of the bear market now. So there's a lot less, just keeping people alive and, giving money to just make sure that, people can survive the bear market. That's part of our job in a way, but it's also not a great use of funds. Our goal is that everybody that's building on Algorand, they can stand on their own 2 feet because they have a good business model, they have product market fit, they have a good management team, they have a good tech team, they can survive on their own. That's the idea of this, right? And so, but when you only have one of something, and so as this ecosystem gets bigger and bigger, and we have more redundancies of kind of the core, primitives and core products and core companies, this is the direction that we're all supposed to be traveling in, right? So it gets, in a way, a bit easier to be the foundation, right?
Yeah, and I think that's going to bring us perfectly onto where I want to take this. I'm really glad you mentioned some of that, because when you think about, for example, technologies that have came before us, like the internet, what we're currently communicating on,
gold is looking
people
good if you
saw
hold
the
gold.
technology and said, okay, I can build this use case that's going to serve the masses upon it. I think there's a real similarity, and I think there obviously is a similarity between a technology like the internet and people saying, okay, we want to build upon that and we want to leverage the internet to make our business successful, with people leveraging distributed ledger technology, people leveraging Algorand specifically to help enhance their business, come up with a product market fit. And it's very interesting that the prospect for Algorand is it's very fit to do whatever somebody might need to do. That's becoming even more the case with the Algo Toolkit and everything else. It's only going to take one killer application to really just ignite the entire industry. I mean, somebody might come up with the next YouTube, Facebook, I dare say JP Morgan or something along those lines on Algorand. I don't know if you have anything to sort of say on that and how you see Algorand more broadly as a platform that people can leverage in the real world.
Yeah, and you really teed me up perfectly by first talking about the internet. So and I've read a couple of books on this, so I do want to give some credit to these. I read Walter Isaacson's The Innovators, and I read Chris Dixon's Read, Write, Own, and they.
At this point, for an America blockchain or one of these utility tokens that are built in America or America approved, I'm not looking for technicals. I don't give a shit at this moment. I care about partnerships. I care about the shit that's already in place. I don't want to see that it just takes one killer application. It all takes one killer application for any of these fucking chains. I want to see it's already here and done. That's what I want to know about Algo.
They are both very good histories of the internet forward. And the point of the example of the internet, of the web, of web browser technology, of email technology, is this is permissionless. It's anybody can build anything on it. And this is why you have so many different kinds of email clients, why you have so many different kinds of web browsers, why you have different, it's an open architecture. And it was a very, it was a moment in time that maybe got a little bit lucky in certain ways that we ended up like this. And then these big companies started building on that open architecture, and they made it very easy to use. And then they locked you in. So, the Facebook and the TikTok and the
Algorand right now that you go, wow, this is a big deal?
You know what's interesting? I want to talk a little bit about things that are a big deal in maybe more in smaller areas, right? Because so if you look at, for example, World Chess. So we now have a partnership with World Chess, and World Chess, you can put your rankings will be recorded in real time on chain. Okay. So you might, and FIDE is the ranking body for World Chess. Okay, now you might think, if I told my cousin that, would she be like, okay, that's really important or not? But it turns out, the more I learned about this, it turns out that there's a lot of shenanigans that go on with chess rankings, actually. And, as it turns out, there's like 800,000 users of World Chess. They play 20,000 games a day. So if you are an avid chess player, you care very much that your ranking is real and can't be tampered with. And that can only happen on a blockchain. Now, there's all kinds of other things about fan engagement and that kind of thing. But going back to the core principle of the blockchain, and Algorand's very proud to partner with World Chess, it's this idea that when the information is there, it has integrity. It has not been doctored. It can't be messed with, right? And so as a chess player, you're going to find that very important. Our mission statement actually is that, we power a world where information has integrity and innovative ideas can scale. That's what we're about at Algorand and Algorand broadly and at the foundation. Another example, I think of these as like big examples in this one, mercifully, I think small area, but you can, if you are a drug researcher, get the fame and glory and money from a successful drug launch, even if your drug is not successful, by mucking about with the MRI images that come from your drug efficacy. And in particular, this is a kind of an analogy, but if you take pictures of a tumor, a patient with a tumor, and over time that tumor is getting bigger after they take your drug, well, a very nice thing for you to be able to do would be to just switch the ordering of those images and show the tumor getting smaller, and submit that to large-scale trials. And look, this tumor gets, but you're faking the data. And so a company building on Algorand called LabTrace, they partner with Siemens, and that timestamp of that MRI comes right out of the machine instantaneously,
LabTrace?
not even a nanosecond
That
to be able
sounds
to mess
highly
with
familiar.
that instantaneously. And again, I hope this is a use case that is very small, actually, because I hope there's a very small number of medical researchers that are actually doctoring their MRI images. But this is where information integrity is
Oh no,
so
never mind. That's different
vitally
than I heard it
important,
before.
that this is about people's health and cancer patients and their potentially their survival. And they've now, this company LabTrace, they've just done a partnership with the Gates Foundation, and they've got a couple of interesting things going on there with some portable MRI machines where you can imagine the MRI machine is portable. It might be even easier to doctor these things. So they're really, so these kinds of things I'm pretty excited about as well. If you're a big chemical company like,
I mean, yeah, this is all cool. But this sounds to me like stuff I would have been excited about last cycle or 2020 or 2021. If we're talking about Elon Musk and Doge putting all government spending on the blockchain, where I'm not looking for this tiny use cases that are occurring, which may be valid and interesting and useful for those particular segments, but I want to see the big shit that happened. And unless I hear more, I don't really think Algorand is going to be I'm trying to pick the one that's going to be picked by Doge. That's what I'm trying to do. Of course, that's what I'm trying to do. It's what we're all trying to do. If you're paying attention, if you're, trying to move ahead of the puck. I don't see it here yet. I would expect more exciting information. Right now I think it's Constellation. I could be fucking wrong. I need to learn more about HBAR. Maybe that's a possibility as well. But let's keep going with Algo. It's just like all this shit is just, I'm looking at VeChain from what, 2000, was it 21? Probably 2017 was talking about Walmart's in China tracking that stuff. And now 2020, we're talking about gloves and the UFC tracking their gloves. So this just sounds like old hype stuff that I would have been hyped about before I would have been buying into a product, but not in 2025.
Repsol or Sabic, these guys have partnered with Finboot because they have extremely stringent environmental standards that they have to meet. And proving that is hard. And also,
and if we're looking at government taking on blockchain, it's such a big deal. It's such a big investment. It's like the government can't screw up with this choice. Unless Algorand has, like if you look at Constellation Network right now, I think it's not, they're working with the DoD, but there's a term that they're like, they are mission critical. And I think, I forget what the like 3-letter thing is, but it's something like permission to be used, or God damn it, whatever. It's been approved by the Department of Defense that it's safe to use right now. So that's what I want to see. I want to see that sort of information going on, that you're working with federal government already. You've been working with the federal government for a year or two, and you have, God, I wish I could remember that. I can't remember what it was. But Constellation DAC has already been declared safe for use by government by the Department of Defense. So does Algo have that? Let me hear that.
Time consuming, but they've partnered with Finboot. Finboot, of course, built on Algorand, using Algorand. And I think also that they moved from Ethereum because of cost. Actually, I think that's also true. But this idea that you can credibly claim, and this is why, you can credibly claim that the origin of where you say things
if you're holding
from,
Algorand,
what
why?
things you
what
say
are you so
have,
excited about?
is credible to everybody. And this is why it's funny, because people don't really ask me this question anymore. But when I started here, this question came up a lot. Like, why not a private blockchain? Wouldn't that be much more efficient? Wouldn't that be better? It's faster. Da, da, da. But that can only come from a public blockchain. And so this idea that Finboot or Repsol or Sabic can say, even if I wanted to alter that information, I can't do it because it's on Algorand. I can't do it. I can't. And so it's like the game of chicken where you're kind of tying your hands to the steering wheel and say you're taking away agency to prove the credibility of your claims. These are examples that I think are really super interesting. And I bring these up also because I do have my go-to examples that I talk to on podcasts. I'm trying to expand my repertoire away from those, but but I have others that I can also talk about.
No, they're brilliant. And I think really what all of those do, I love the fact that you brought up public versus private. You can't mess with a public blockchain unless you have all the nodes. It'll just simply be impossible. Hopefully.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So you can't actually mess with the kind of verifiability that blockchains give you. And actually, what's more important in life than truth and provenance and being able to actually trust something? This word trust, we kind of throw it around in the crypto space.
What's going on, dude? This is just talking about blockchain technology. This isn't talking about Algorand. Yes, if it's on any chain, you can't change it unless it's XRP or Tron.
People really stop to think about the actual weight behind that. Without trust, there's no society. Without trust, there's no relationships. Without trust, there's no anything. And those examples are very clear evidence of use cases that are leveraging Algorand to provide exactly that. Trust, reliability, et cetera, et cetera.
But it's a weird kind of trust. It's not come on, you can trust me. I'm a good guy. Like, I've never done anything to you in the past. You can kind of, blah, 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 blah. It's not that kind of trust. It's the trust me because you don't have to trust me. Because even if you don't trust me personally, I can't mess with this. And so therefore it's trustable in a way. The blockchain is not truth in that it has the same kind of garbage in and garbage out problem that any database will have. But once it's in, it can be information can be updated, of course, but information cannot be altered. And if you update the information, everybody, of course, can see the trail of those updates. So it's very transparent and it's very clear. And I think, on Algorand, it's something like 10 to the negative 16 or 10 to the negative 18, chance that all of these thousands of nodes all over the place can get together and just decide to change the order of transactions on the ledger. So, this is an extremely small number. So
Would you believe me if I told you that my eyes are not even real? I recorded this entire clip without looking into the lens and just fixed it later with a new AI
That's
tool
crazy.
called...
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think one of
Can
the
you
best
see
things
my
I ever
eyes?
heard about I can't remember
Am
who
I
said
looking
it.
at you or not?
I'm sure someone will let me know. One of the best things I ever heard about actually the power of this technology was, could you imagine if we had a distributed ledger that was kind of immutable from the start of humankind? We'd live in a completely different world.
Very different world.
Because
Very different
history
world.
couldn't have been tinkered with. It couldn't have been changed. We'd probably be further ahead in many fields. Of course, this is speculation. Right. It's not happened, but you can see that kind of progression. You know, if you have a source of truth, if you have something people can't tamper with, they can't mess with, it's distributed. You could imagine a world that we could be some sort of a utopia.
This is
from
not cool.
A very kind of traditional industries to the.
Yeah. I mean, it is obviously very positive, I think, for the industry. I mean, we are very, nothing has happened yet. President Trump hasn't even taken office yet, but the signs are very positive. And I think there is many reasons to be hopeful. That the SEC under Atkins will have a more of a, look, the people in crypto are the ones that were the most burned from 3 Hours Capital and Do Kwon and FTX. So these early days of, no regulation and we're a completely parallel, financial sector and I mean, there are people that are still hold those beliefs, but most of the sector now wants sensible regulation, right? So that's point one. So the sector has kind of come along and is now clamoring for good regulation. Second, we have some, reasonable people at the SEC that are not scared to, and I think also in Senate banking as well. We'll see, who that is, but the Senate and the House, and we'll get some legislation passed, even perhaps, some stablecoin legislation, which will be really important for the industry. So so it's this like trifecta. One, the industry is ready. Two, we have the administration that is open to the idea of digital assets. And President Trump has said a number of times that he wants to be the world leader in digital assets. And number three, thank is probably too strong of a word, definitely, but we have a little bit the Democrats to thank for this, in that we didn't do anything. And so now other countries are, 2, 3, 4 years ahead of us. So we have the luxury of being able to look around and pick some of the best things that other jurisdictions have tried to do. And so I think we're in a very enviable position right now to really have just a terrific year where companies from all over the world can come to the United States, play on a playing field that is level or perhaps even better than in other jurisdictions, and be monitored by the best regulators in the world. And so I'm very bullish about the environment for crypto going forward, for sure. And when I say bullish, I mean the use cases that can be rolled out, as well as market caps of coins. That's not so much what I mean. I just mean the strength and the growth of the industry in the next 4 years. I think it's going to be, and then I think if that can happen, then it will be cemented enough that it can withstand some of the political back and forth going forward. And I also think that the Democrats will see, I hope anyway, maybe I don't know if I think, but I hope that they will see that it's not quite the boogeyman that they feared, and that both parties will begin to see this a bit more sensibly.
Yeah, I'm so excited as well. I share those thoughts with you. I mean, it's still kind of like a pipe dream, for me, that this is actually happening, that we're here. I mean, I always knew this technology was going to sort of take hold in the manners that we're seeing today, and we haven't even really seen it yet. When you think about the trajectory we're on and where we are, we're really at the first innings. And I know, we're talking years, from 2008 till now, but really things haven't been enabled to get to where they need to be. And with regulations, one thing that I'm very excited about is to see people coming out of the woodworks. It's not just me and you that have the foresight into how powerful this technology is. I'm sure it's most big corporations, institutions, just like with the internet, you do or die, And I think that's very, very exciting. So even though I'm not in America, I wish the UK would maybe adopt a bit of a similar stance, but but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Politics is something
you guys led on open banking, though. That was a very big contribution. So the world has you to thank for that good model.
Yeah. I mean, the UK's given some amazing things to the world. It's also given some not so great things, but that's for an entirely different video. I think a good place for us to come on to is there's kind of a lot of really hot topics at the moment when it comes to crypto. One, I think, on the back end of the likes of what Larry Fink had to say in regards to tokenization and real world assets, and that's largely been echoed by a lot of people out there. It seems
I love Digibyte. What happened to Digibyte? It's actually like real, but it just doesn't have the action. Nobody wants it. It's a shame. Digibyte's pretty cool. Cool protocol, cool token.
Very evident that things are going to be tokenized and put on chain. It makes markets more efficient. You can definitely talk about this more than I can. Real world assets and Algorand. What are we seeing there? Has Algorand got a play for real world assets? What's kind of the state of play as it relates to real world assets?
Let's get some
massive
hype.
sector and Algorand.
So there are two ways I think of thinking about real world assets. One is that you break them up into little pieces, and one that you don't necessarily have to break them up into little pieces. And what I think is interesting about the break them up into little pieces is the tokenizing of things like money market funds and bond funds and the like. And so we worked with Aberdeen and have tokenized a money market fund on Aberdeen just recently. That was a partnership with Archex, which is the tokenization platform, and Quantos, which has a euro dollar on a euro, digital euro on Algorand. Digital euro is not a stable coin; it's a digital euro, so it's always one-to-one backed by the euro. It's digital money, the way that you understand it. And that, when I think about that, I think of kind of futuristically about just holding a little, and that those are for accredited for whitelisted users. You have to, not anybody can just do it. So you have to be whitelisted, but you could. If you have a little tiny piece of that money market fund, you could do things like buy a cup of coffee with it. And what I think is interesting about that is this notion that your money is always earning yield for you, and it's earning yield for you up until the minute that you turn it over to your barista, at which point it starts earning money for the barista. Like, this is unimaginable in traditional finance, right? So this is the kind of thing that I think is pretty interesting in this kind of fractionalization.
That's kind of cool. And by kind of cool, I mean that's pretty cool. Although it skews me out a little bit. It's kind of like CBDC, but only the positive part of CBDC, I guess. That freaked me out a little bit, although it makes sense. It doesn't seem, of course, everyone would hold their money in a money market fund if they collect some interest on it.
Another real world asset tokenization is in prop tech. So if you are, and this is interesting to me because when I think of financial inclusion, I don't just think of poor people having access to bank accounts. That's mostly what people mean, but I also mean middle-class investors having access to investment opportunities that are typically reserved for accredited investors or the rich. And rental income is one of those things, right? So I don't mean the in-law suite over your garage. I mean owning an apartment building with multiple apartments in it, or owning an Airbnb somewhere, or and being able to get that unearned income stream. And this is a very nice investment opportunity, as people have understood for decades and decades and decades. Problem is, very hard to do if you don't have a lot of money up front to buy the apartment building. So another company on Algorand called Lofty AI, they have created a marketplace where for as little as $50, you can buy a portion of that apartment building if you want. And you will have the rental income that accrues to you that corresponds to the percentage of the total investment that you've made. So you have a little piece of that income stream if you want. And if you, of course, the more you invest in it, the more share of that income stream you'll get is, I think, a really important way to also think about financial inclusion for households that are not accredited investors. A third way to do it, so that's those both, though, those kind of fractionalize, use tokenization to fractionalize big lumpy investments. And of course, there's other things. You can do this with paintings. You can do this with anything that's lumpy. You can make it into little bits. And a non-lumpy example, though, is similar in that there's another aspect of
This looks
tokenization,
good
which
for
is
short to
creating
me, but
markets
this
where
is,
markets
I
don't
can't trade
actually
this.
exist. And I think this stuff is
This
also
is on
very
2
interesting. So
spot.
there are carbon trading markets, for example, that exist. But Eureka, which is a small Mongolian carbon trading company, they've created carbon markets at the household level. So if you are a Mongolian household, and they have this not just in Mongolia, even as far as Brazil, they're doing work. But if you put a solar panel on your house in Mongolia, it's very easy to see how much environmental protection you're generating, because they know how much coal a coal heating unit generates
Take this down in 2
soot
cents.
and carbon and all of
Negative 2
that.
cents? Wait
and
a
so
minute.
they can very easily monetize for you how much
Holy shit. Never mind.
coal and soot you're not putting into the environment
Goes
by this.
down to
And
zero.
then on individual markets, carbon trading markets, carbon trading markets are for big players, right? But they're coming at the household level and making carbon trading markets for households. So I think that is a really interesting use of tokenization as well. And then last, there is last in my list, so I stopped talking, is an airline called TravelX that is tokenizing airline tickets. It's another example of creating a market that didn't exist before in the secondary sales of airline tickets. So you buy an airline ticket to someplace you decide you don't want to go there. You are kind of, excuse my language, you're kind of screwed. The airline tells you, no, you can do it, but you can only do it within 1 year, and you got to make the exact same thing. And or, there's a penalty of $75 if and it's just like such a nightmare. But they have partnered now with a couple of airlines, and I think there's now signing their 4th airline, where you can put your ticket up for sale on a market and be able to sell to somebody else that ticket. Now, of course, this being the blockchain, you can attach little things to it. So if you are a good traveler and you have a lot of lounge pass and stuff, you can kind of attach your lounge pass to your ticket, because it goes with your ticket, and then that next person can also have your lounge pass or whatever it is. And so these are the two, just to wrap it up a little bit, these are the two things.
It's not doing much for me here. I get it. I mean, these are all cool functionalities for any blockchain. For any blockchain, it's cool. You partner with them, but they will jump to anybody. I get the technicality of algos, got high transaction rate, high through rate, and some cool features at L1, but that's not making me buy. I'm not getting FOMO over any of that. I guess a big trade is like, when I feel FOMO, that's not a good emotion to respond to, but it's a good emotion to feel that, hey, this project might be something.
Things that I think are in a taxonomy pretty interesting. One is this idea that you can take lumpy things and tokenize them and make them smaller, and that creates markets. And then the other way that you can use tokenization to create markets that didn't exist at all. And I think this is just another way that the blockchain technology itself is very good, and Algorand specifically is very performant in this area.
Yep,
that's yes.
Yeah, the underlying tech that this is built on has to be sort of usable, and that's one thing that stands out from the start with Algorand. But if people are stumbling upon Algorand for the first time today, I really hope this is one of the first videos they watch, because what they're going to find,
it's not doing anything to me, dude. This is one of the first videos I watch.
Areas in which Algorand is having a unbelievable impact on. So we've spoken about things like chess. You just more recently, we spoke about money market funds. Actually, I interviewed Graham, the CEO of Archax, and he said he was very excited about the exact same thing that you're excited about, which is the kind of tokenization of money market funds and using them as payments. I mean,
that is so cool.
That is cool.
It's just mind-blowing. And actually, I think, and I truly do believe this, that distributed ledgers are going to do amazing things for the traditional financial system. I know it's kind of against the ethos, perhaps, of what this industry spawned out of. We're supposed to be against them. But actually, I don't think that's the case. I think this technology will impact that sector perhaps more so than any other. It will revolutionize it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you asked me about real world assets, but I think DeFi has almost as big an impact. And you probably talk about DeFi all the time on this thing, but it is amazing to me that retail financial customers cannot borrow against their investments even if they're over collateralized in traditional finance. Like, why can't you do that? It's over collateralized. And so the idea that DeFi lets you, if you have, wealth in Bitcoin or wealth in crypto of some kind, that you can, instead of having to sell those assets that you don't want to sell, but you can borrow against them, not looking for credit, not looking for, a loan to value ratio of anything. It's like over collateralized, and that you can borrow against that and use it to renovate your house, or buy the car that you want, and you feel confident about being able to make those payments and that your collateral is not going to get called. Then this opens up just a whole world for retail customers that it's frankly always been a surprise to me that traditional finance has not gotten its act together to offer this to their clients.
Maybe they've just been looking for a sort of technology that may enable them to do so, and I think we've stumbled upon it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Honestly, again, back to my statement there. If people are finding Algorand for the first time today, I hope they stumble upon this video, because we've discussed
Me too.
multiple
Honestly,
areas.
It's not a good video for someone stumbling on Algorand for the first time today. That's me. I'm that person.
Trillions and trillions of dollars in terms of value
for me.
That's going to be coming on chain. That doesn't mean any market cap, or we're not.
Maybe somebody who's never seen or heard about blockchain
on tokens individually. Just the volume, the size, really, to weigh up the magnitude of what's going to be coming on chain. Spoken about smaller things, airline tickets. I mean, it's just a very useful thing to have, that if you buy an airline ticket, you can't make it, you can now sell that on. It doesn't just stop there. Concert tickets, you're going to be able to do the same thing with. Whatever ticket bust, you can just see the transformations that Algorand is bringing to the table. DeFi, we could have gone further on DeFi and say, okay, well, now we can actually build sort of credibility scores on blockchains, because they've got a very unique feature that they can do that. And then you can kind of have instead of them needing to trust traditional stuff that can be, you can now sort of almost be your own bank in terms of how you get money, how you lend money. There's so many areas that this technology is changing.
You can create a reputation for yourself. Absolutely. And the reason that you can create a reputation for yourself is that you cannot alter the information that you generate about yourself. And so knowing that, people believe the reputation that you put forward for yourself on blockchain.
Back to our original talking points.
Yeah. We've come full circle.
Web,
absolutely. So when you look at this as a whole, and you look at all of these, and we've spoken about
brutal,
minuscule part of a treasure chest of use cases that Algorand is enabling and facilitating. And that's exciting. This is one of those videos.
It's getting hard to keep track of for me, actually. It's starting to get hard to keep track of. Yeah.
Rather you than me in this situation. But go and check out Algorand, guys. I'm absolutely encouraging everyone to go and check out what's actually going on here. It only takes 1, 2, 3, 4, let alone hundreds of these things to really take hold. And Algorand just becomes this unstoppable powerhouse, not to mention all of the things fundamentally going on in regards to the protocol, et cetera, et cetera. I think I've got multiple questions for you, Stacey. We could honestly talk.
Lay it on me.
All day long. But reflecting, when you're the CEO of the Algorand Foundation, I really want to know what you want to leave in regards to your impact. What's your goal here as the CEO of the Algorand Foundation? What do you want your legacy to be?
I want Algorand to be named. I want it to be the one that you talk about, the one that is named, the one that is like where it's happening. I am tired of, I have deep respect for other L1 blockchains, of course, but I am just tired of the naming of the 3 or 4 blockchains and not having Algorand in that list. And when Algorand's in that list, then I'll be happy. And it will be in that list because of all of the things that not that I've done so much, but all the things this community has done. There are these waves coming forward that I think we'll be able to capture. AI is one, right? Where I think we're very well positioned. Post-quantum, I think we're very well positioned. We've made some good initial steps that I think our job is to position ourselves for the future and to get in the zeitgeist and to support and the developers that are building on Algorand, make sure that they have the best community experience possible, make sure they have the best developer experience possible. And I want to be in that top tier of always talked about, always referred to, and always thought about blockchains.
And I don't think there's any reason why Algorand can't do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to leave links to all things Algorand in the description, where you can go and check out more things, some of the GitHub, some of the development docs, some of the mediums, obviously the Algorand's official websites, obviously Stacey's Twitter. Do go and give Stacey a follow.
Honestly, weak, dude. Freaking weak. Nothing. I mean, not nothing, but not much. Nothing that's going to make me think that this is the chain that America is going to adopt. This is the American blockchain to buy. Constellation tag still #1 for that view. Absolutely. Maybe H-bar. Maybe I got to do some more research on H-bar. But we're going to keep digging in on Algorand. I'm not giving up on it. Maybe I'm just not hitting the right key information. Who the hell's trading FTX? Why is this still going? This is absurd. Look at the weekly. $1.19. Where were we at? $70. Who's still buying this? Crazy. All right, let's go to the other one I had to pull up. I had one that's a little bit of a drama call. Let's see what's going on with this little drama moment. Where's this thing at? This guy. Let's see what this is.
What does your video sound like? Go to artlist.io and get the best music and sound effects for your videos.
Been going on. A lot of this has been going on lately between
Solana guy crashed the Algorand space and got schooled.
There's a guy named Justin Bonds. Some of you are probably familiar about this with him. He's on Twitter, and he does some pretty deep dives into cryptocurrency. And I'm gonna give you. He definitely is in favor of Solana. He's definitely a Solana. You might call it. Some people call him a Solana shill. I don't think that's undeserved, and I'll explain why later. But he's been criticizing Algorand lately, and a lot of the Algorand community has gotten pretty.
For transparency, I am a Constellation shill. I am a most elegant monkey ever shill. I'm a Bitcoin shill. Self-declared and proud of it.
Ticked at him. Well, I didn't know this was going to happen, but he actually got up on a space recently that the Algorand Foundation hosted for staking. And I thought he was pretty cordial overall. I will give him credit for that. But I thought some of his comments were kind of silly. But I think the main issue I have with him is that I don't think he's very fair. I think it's fine to be critical, and I don't think he necessarily points out incorrect things. But for some reason, and people have speculations on that reason. For some reason, he focuses on, when it comes to Solana, that critique
maybe we
is
get
gone.
to 97 and 700 right
Solana
now in the next
has some
couple
of the
minutes.
most obvious critiques you can think of. I mean, failed transactions left or right. I've been using Helium Mobile,
I guess maybe
on
we get to
Solana
98.35 and dump
the service
again.
is great. But anytime I go to claim my tokens, it's about a 50-50 chance it's going to fail.
Maybe you're going to go like this.
So, and not to mention that those failed transactions get counted as transactions and their transaction count. He doesn't seem to have time for that. But anyway, so I want to play this clip because I thought this was pretty interesting. And just give me a second to pull it up.
Let's go, dude. We're all waiting. Okay.
Our friends from Messina will be... Unfortunately, our friends from Messina will be unable to speak today. Kevin is here on the speaker board, and I appreciate him joining, but he's very... And, once again, to the Algo fam listening to us live, I highly recommend that you follow every single one of the speakers today. I know for Node Network.
Here comes a pump.
So, that's just a quick recap of every hour in the next few days. So, just look at their content.
Okay, here we go.
And decide what solution works best for you. There are plenty of options. There's no reason why you shouldn't pick at least one of them, but hopefully multiple, and you try many different projects and support many different projects at once. So, maybe I'll throw it back to my team here. Mark, John, Mikkel. I think my part here by shilling our ecosystem is done. Over to you guys.
Perfect. I think we're going to get to the last part of the space shortly, but I know, John, I think I see your best friend has requested to speak. So we can bring Justin Bonds on stage potentially, and we can...
Oh, I thought it was Sydney Sweeney. Okay, yeah. If it's Justin, that's fine.
Hello, Justin.
I think I know
Hello,
that
can
guy.
you hear us?
Hello.
This Justin Bonds, I think he was really big on Bitcoin cashless cycle and did a lot of writing on that. I think I heard him before about.
Oh, I
Bitcoin
didn't realize
Cash.
you. I applied a while
He's a
ago. Yeah, I
Solana
can hear
guy
you
now,
now.
huh?
How's it going? I was just responding to John Wood actually, in regards to the thing he left me. So I just wrote a really long response.
Hey, Justin, how are things, man?
I'm doing well, man. How are you doing, John? It's been a while since we last chatted.
Yeah, and by the way, I enjoyed the last time too. It's always been very cordial. And by the way, look, this is not about convincing you to my way of thinking or you convincing me to your way of thinking. I understand your viewpoints. I think a lot of them are fair. I just, I think it's worth, calling out where there's, I guess, misunderstanding amongst the ecosystem about certain projects. And I'm happy to speak.
Let's have a chat.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak even
go
to.
ahead,
Sorry. I'm happy to speak even to Ada a little bit because obviously I know the architecture very well. So from the Ada and Algorand side, I'm happy to discuss with you and see what you think.
Sure. No, let's schedule spaces because in 13 minutes from now, I've got my other spaces scheduled. So we don't exactly have too much time to get into it now. I will respond to your most recent post. I was just writing that out now when I surprisingly heard my phone call out my name. That was fun. Yeah. So now, because look, and the way I see it, John, as well, is that look, our viewpoints are not that far apart. Actually, but a lot of the algo community is acting as if like I'm lying and I'm a shill.
Well, yeah, we are, because you kind of are. I mean, he has this thing where, like I said, and I kind of pointed this out earlier, he has no problem critiquing other chains, but when it comes to Solana, he just has that critique is just gone. Like that critical thinking just goes out the window. And that's the main problem I think a lot of the community has.
And I'm just like this horrible human being. And I'm like, you need kind of, when that type of toxicity props up, you need to kind of set that straight or else it will fester. You know what I mean? Like that's just not a healthy type of discourse when I'm, I think I'm coming here as like a legitimate critic. Like I understand Algorand fairly well. I don't know how many other big critics are putting attention to Algorand like this, but if you shun me, then that's not good for the culture, let's say, just from that perspective.
I think across, cryptocurrency in general, and I've worked professionally on Ethereum, Cardano, and Algorand. I think there's a lot of passion and people get fired up, and of course their tweets fire back and forth, and so it's easy to maybe be influenced by the kind of insightful tweets, and get your back up a little bit. So, but I think in general, both in Cardano, by the way, and in Algorand, the communities are typically quite, I think, measured. I mean, not always, of course, but typically, and I like to think integrous, and I think. I'm sorry that you've had some, experiences that you feel are a little bit tribal, but we do try to encourage intellectual honesty.
Well, you certainly always have, and I've very much respect that actually. And when my critique came around, it was very much like, you agree. Yes, you agree with most of my critique. Let's fix it. And I'm like, yay, let's fix it. Like that's how it should be. Not the whole you're denying, like people are denying that my critique is true, yet at the same time they're making the fixes. It makes no freaking sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think here's the thing. Like for example, if we take the relays, which is like one of the core things you have an issue with, which is one of the core things I had an issue with, which is why I pushed for peer-to-peer with our colleagues at Algorand Technologies. I felt it was important to have a permissionless data propagation layer that had absolutely no config nor onboarding required. And so the current state of the world is that in Algorand, the relays, of course, are essentially this super fast network that all of the participation nodes or the consensus nodes connect to. But it is true right now that, of course, anyone, including yourself or myself, without permission can stand up a relay. It will connect to all the other relays in the Algorand network, and it will start to gossip and flow traffic. So,
which, by the way, that permissionless structure, like that's what decentralization is. We can all run a node. There is a barrier to entry, and some people, as we've seen in our chat earlier, argue that maybe that barrier should be lower. I think that's a fair question, but I think it's a pretty pretty low barrier compared to a lot of other chains. And listen, I love Hedera, I love Sui, but the barrier to entry is on Hedera right now is like you have to basically host a giant, you basically have to own a giant platform. You have to own a giant company to stake. You have to be part of the governing council. So there's only like 31 nodes right now. On Sui, you have to own, I think it's like 100 million Sui. It's really high. It's really high. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. It is 100 million Sui. It's really high. So, you know, the average, like, and there's a max on Algorand. There's a max of 70 million. So which one's more decentralized, right? And like I said, I'm a fan of both. You know, I think they both have their strengths. And I just think right now, if we're talking about, if we're talking about decentralization and Justin Bonds.
Honestly, I don't really pay attention too much to proof of stake. So I guess that is interesting information that the minimum requirement of stake is dramatically lower than Sui, and you know HBARs is a whole different thing. So that's cool.
We'll make this difference between consensus and relay nodes. I think that's picking nits when we're talking about compare. You know, you always have to ask compared to what. And if you look at a lot of the other coins in the ecosystem, you know, right now there's more nodes on Algorand than every other chain except for Ethereum. I think that's a big deal. So I don't hate him for his critique, but I think it's a little misguided or that's not good. In context, basically.
Sorry, flow traffic. But what it will not do is be discoverable by a vanilla consensus node. And so if one wanted to stand up their own kind of relay, you would have to specifically point your consensus node at it. And so that's okay. It's not great. And true decentralization is where anyone can start one of these things and they don't have to bend over backwards in order to get their data to flow.
Well, in practice, this is the part that concerns me. And I'd like to, maybe we can schedule a spaces for like next week or the week after that. We can dig into this a bit more. Don't have enough time for that now. But what I would specifically like to dig into is what I'm concerned about in terms of where Algo is heading. I'm not sure how familiar you are with XRP. So XRP has what's known as a unique node list. And basically it just comes with the software, right? Like you run, you know, your node and everyone will connect to the unique node list. And anyone who kind of doesn't connect to that node list is essentially kind of kicked out of the network. They can't get their transactions relayed. So in practice, it's a permission system. In practice, even though like a lot of XRP people will say, no, but anyone can run one of these nodes, anyone can put up their own list, but it's meaningless if you have this kind of centralization of control of the list. So that's the part that concerns me about where Algorand's heading.
And so that's fair, but even in peer-to-peer, that exists to some extent, because even in Bitcoin, as an example, there's a bootstrap DNS, right?
Right. But I would say that's still different because of the peer-to-peer, actually, because of the peer-to-peer gossip network. You're able to, that's just your starting point in Bitcoin. In XRP, that's your endpoint. That's the problem.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably fair with XPI. I'm not sure about the architecture so much on that, but you know, you still have, even in Bitcoin with absolute peer-to-peer by definition, you still have this kind of like the golden node that you go to first to get started, right?
Yeah, so to speak, or a list of quote-unquote golden nodes. That's correct. Yeah.
And so I guess my point is, absolute like perfect decentralization at the network propagation layer is very, very tricky to do. But you know, Algorand has reasonable decentralization at the network propagation layer now. I know you don't agree with that, but certainly in Q1, when we drop peer-to-peer, we will get to a place where it's as functionally decentralized as Bitcoin is currently.
Well, see, John's kind of saying what I was saying, right? Like, de facto, it's basically decentralized. I think Justin's picking like a really technical nit that I don't think most people are going to care about. And you know, whenever you make a statement like that, you have to say, well, compared to what? And you could say, well, compared to Bitcoin, maybe Bitcoin's a little more decentralized. Okay, fine, but I would put Algorand pretty high up in especially with the number of nodes that are running now. I would put Algorand up pretty high in the decentralization list. So that's just what I'm saying.
Yeah, I really have to check on the details of that. Like, what I'm also curious about, like, look, I mean, like, as far as like to process one transaction, right? Like, to process one transaction takes a certain amount of data, takes a certain amount of processing power, and it kind of looks similar. It's all of the blockchains, right? Look, I mean, Algo is not black magic. right? If it were to actually do 10,000 TPS, its node requirements would be significantly higher, unless, right, what you're doing now is you're basically just outsourcing those node requirements to a highly centralized and permission part of this design. That's what the relay nodes are. If you didn't have the relay nodes, the actual node requirements for normal nodes would be much, much higher. Funnily enough, the relay nodes have similar node requirements to Solana.
But actually, I don't think we actually have spiked over 10,000. And we didn't have nearly the number of nodes in place. So I'm not so sure about that.
Oh, no, they don't. So like I'll take the 2 points. So, working backwards chronologically, our relay nodes are 32 gigs of RAM with a gigabit NIC and I think 3 terabytes of disk space. That's NVMe.
Okay, I stand corrected then. But at 10K TPS, it would just be the same node requirements as Solana, right?
No, it wouldn't actually be, because the AVM is whatever. I know we're running out of time, but the AVM is like the Apple Silicon of the crypto space, man. It's incredibly efficient, and so, by the way, is our data propagation, and by the way, our deduplication and our handling of transactions that are invalid, etc. And so.
What's the size of a single transaction, just out of curiosity, like by bytes? Like how many bytes is a single transaction?
If I can jump in here for a second.
Yeah, sure.
This totally feels like a dedicated space.
Yeah. This is not the time or place. And I'm also jumping into another space in 6 minutes from now.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's continue this conversation. And Justin, as you suggest, maybe we do a dedicated space about this next week. And it'd be great to kind of dive deep on this and park the issue for now, because I think we're running out of.
Oh yeah, that's a little heady. And I didn't really learn anything about
one thing of Justin.
The what's it called? Like compliance system? What's that? Oh shit, I lost the word. The consensus mechanism of Algorand. So I can't really get into that too much. So let's just get out of there. We got a new short interview with CTO or CMO. Let's get some info about Algo, man. I want to find out more. I want to know more about it. I want to be hyped. I want to feel the FOMO. Let's get some marketing. What are we doing in marketing here? Cool room.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name's AJ Writes Crypto, and I am here at the Decipher conference in Barcelona, Spain with no other than the new CMO of Algorand, Mark. First of all, Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous. How about you?
I cannot complain. I'm first time in Barcelona. I'm having a really good time, and I'm glad to be here. Thanks for doing this interview. We really appreciate it. So you've been Algorand's new CMO for 3 months now?
3 months.
You've hit the ground running with a lot of things. Just tell me about your first 3 months with Algorand.
I mean, it's been honestly, it's been amazing. I
interview's from
used to
7 months
work
ago.
on Android, as you know, leading Android marketing, and we had a really big developer community out there. And so coming here and seeing this very vibrant community, and also receiving kind of the warm welcome from everybody, has been absolutely amazing. So it's been great.
So I must say, not that long ago, you successfully broke crypto Twitter. You broke it in half. You had people happy, you had people upset. Tell me about the commercial, the inception of it. Just tell me about the commercial. And job well done.
Well, honestly, it's not my job. It's the community's job primarily, right? Like it started off with Governor Hat, one of our active community members, who sent me a direct tweet to me and say, Mark, serious suggestion. Here's a script. You should film the script. And I remember I was in Boston with Stacy, And we were looking over the script and it's like saying, oh, this is actually pretty cool. We should go do this. And so that's how it started. And so I contacted a few people that I used to work with before, see if we could actually do this, and we kind of pulled it off. And I think more importantly, we also got members of the community involved. Rich Flair was in the video, Bart was in the video, and so it all came together really nicely. And it was really an Algo fan production, right? It was not just me as a CMO saying we're going to do a commercial. It was really, the idea came from the community, the execution was partly done with the community, and then the spreading of the video was completely done by the community. So that was the awesome part of it.
Yeah, I mean, 10 out of 10 on execution.
I think this is the video. Oh wait, you're not gonna be able to hear it. Hold on. Let's keep watching this. I'll figure that out in a second.
There, you know, it's just really funny seeing the people like from the Ethereum or the Solana ecosystems. But you know,
yeah, the maxis got really upset.
The truth hurts. The truth hurts sometimes. You know, so you know, Mark, I do have to take this opportunity to poke you for some alpha. Are we going to see a second Algorand commercial?
Well, who knows? We might. We might. I mean, as one of the community members noticed, they posted last week this like little kind of poster of like Algorand filming in a park in New York. So I guess we go.
I think from over here. Okay.
Hey.
Hey, hey, morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
You guys take Bitcoin, right?
Sure do.
I'm gonna be paying with Ethereum if that's okay.
Okay, yep, no problems.
It's a good thing I'm paying with Solana.
You can go ahead and tap.
Yeah, and there we go.
Oh, it failed. Try it again. Whoa, hold up there, Smart. It looks like it's gonna be another 27 minutes before this transaction clears.
What?
Sorry, $112. I have like 3 things.
Ethereum, they got that peak hour gas thing.
Now you got it.
Maybe one more time. What are you gonna do? Just wait right here, without the bag, without the bag.
I think it's gonna work this time.
No.
Yo.
Should have shopped with Algorand.
How do I get in that line?
Whoa. Oh shit. That's a good commercial. Wow. And what is that, Scalamucci too? Oh, that was good. Great job.
Uncovered. And so I guess, yes,
Great
there will be
job.
something.
That's
There will be
fantastic.
something, but I can't say much more than that, unfortunately.
Okay, all good. Well, stay tuned, everybody.
That was the
Stay
most
tuned.
bullish thing
So I
I've
must
seen
say,
so
you
far
know,
about
your speech
Algorand.
today, amazing. Everybody, the link
And it was pure
to Mark's
marketing and
speech
hype.
from
That's
this
why mean
morning
points are
is
so
down
important.
below
Hype
in
is
the
so
description
important.
if you'd like to see it. And you know,
That was great.
A couple things from your speech this morning. First thing that really hit a nerve with me was Project Fix the Data. Just quick overview, elevator pitch. Explain to the audience what Project Fix the Data is.
Yeah, so as you know, like data on a blockchain is really critical because it's used by analysts, it's used by commentators, used by the media to assess the vibrancy of the ecosystem. And so having the right data out there is absolutely critical. And it's an area where we've had some issues in the past. Some providers are not really integrating Algorand. Some providers have outdated data. Some providers have the wrong data, specifically on transaction counts. And so we put this project out there to get help from the community to spot problems and report problems to us, but then also to help us fix these problems. That's what Project Fix the Data is about.
Gotcha. You know, I want to get back to the speech, but one thing I want to say, everybody, like, you know, Mark is from Android marketing.
Mm-hmm.
This is not like his first walk in the park. You know, obviously, you know what Android is, right? Well, this is your guy. So on, you know, crypto Twitter, when people are like Algorand, like when marketing, you know, what does that make you think? I feel like we have the guy for the job. Like, what does that make you feel like when you see that?
Well, I think there's a lot that we can do from a marketing perspective, and so I'm excited about all the plans that we have in place for the rest of the year around like brand campaigns, awareness campaigns, more active campaigns towards developers, getting developers on board. So we have a whole slew of things going on, and I think the message to the community is also like it's not the foundation only. I think it's working with the community and engaging with the community and helping them spread the word with us, because the community has a much stronger voice than I have. I only have one voice. They're 100,000 people strong or more, right? Their
That was an
reach
amazing
is far
commercial.
bigger than the reach that I have as a marketing
Really
person.
fantastic. Best I've ever seen.
So yes, we'll do a lot from a marketing perspective, but we also need the community to engage with us and spread the word and be our Algorand army in the way that the developers on Android were our Android army. And so it's very similar in that regard.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited about engaging with the community and spreading the word far and wide.
Amazing. So everybody out there, if you're in the Algo fan, make sure you smash the like button down below if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel. And also, so keeping the ball rolling here, Mark, announcement just came out yesterday, the integration with Coinbase USDC on Algorand. Really big stuff.
Yes.
Hype news. I love that.
That's
But
not hype.
to take it a step further, something that the audience might not know is that in Coinbase, the common learn to earn thing on the Coinbase platform, you take a quiz and you get $3 in Aave, or they do that on Coinbase. Algorand has a coming integration with Coinbase that's a little bit more involved than the normal quiz where you can get all the questions wrong and take the questions. This one's a lot better than those ones. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the partnership with Coinbase has two components, right? There's the USDCA announcement that you mentioned, and then the second part is indeed the learn and earn. And so the learn and earn, the idea is not that we will just pay people for watching a video or taking a quiz or something like that. We're not interested in that. What we're interested in is letting people experience the power of Algorand. And so we want to hold people's hands and say like, hey, first step, you download the Para wallet, you create an account. And then with that account, we'll drop you a few algos or USDC. And then we want people to maybe try a DeFi protocol where they swap their algos for USDC or vice versa or something else.
So he's starting to look
And
good for
then
me
we
for
want
a
them to
bull-
download an
short-term
NFT, and
bullish
then we
trade.
want them to participate in governor
I'll watch it
rewards, and
carefully right now.
etc. And so we want to basically create this journey. We want to take users on a journey and let them experience Algorand for themselves. And because we believe that our technology is so superior that when people realize what's going on, that they will say, wow, this is amazing, instant finality, I don't have that on another chain. There's no errors, there's no failures. How come there's no failures? Every other blockchain fails all the time. No, Algorand doesn't fail, right? And so we want to show people the power of Algorand by taking their hand and leading them to that journey. And we think it's going to be very impactful.
I think that's amazing because instead of just, like you said, watching a video or taking a quiz, people are actually going to be doing on-chain transactions. And Algorand just hit 2 billion transactions. And then, the second billion took half as much time as the first billion. Now doing this on Coinbase, the third billion is going to happen that much faster.
That's
and
right.
definitely make sure, when does that come out on Coinbase?
That's coming out hopefully in August, September.
August, September. So everybody, make sure you keep an eye out for
August,
that on your
September,
Coinbase
so that
app.
should happen
Make
already.
sure you learn and earn and participate on-chain with Algorand. Also, during your speech, there was a chart about the Algo fam, the percentage it's grown in the past year. What was that number?
Yeah, it was 30%.
30, over 30%.
30% since the beginning of the year.
Wow, that is very impressive. Very impressive. And another aspect from your speech today is that there is one big circle that has 8 million Python developers, and then there's a small circle that has 30,000 Web3 developers. And now Algorand, still with Teal, but now you can code on Algorand with Python, and we're going to tap into that bigger circle.
Yes.
So what does that look like to you, your strategy to tap into those 8 million developers?
Yeah, so first of all, it's about creating awareness to the traditional Python developers about, hey, there's now an easy way to onboard on a blockchain and developing on a blockchain. That's the first part. The second part is explaining to them why they should care, right? Why use a blockchain? Because not every single project is suited for a blockchain. So you have to kind of educate the Python developers about why they should do it and which cases make sense. And then thirdly, we also want to talk to Python developers directly about their career opportunities, because the reality of the matter is that with AI coming, a lot of Python developers don't have the same type of job security with the likes of Google and Amazon as they used to have. And so our message to them is you should really think about Web3, because in Web3 you will own what you make. If you're working for Google or Amazon, you own nothing, right? You develop for Google and for Amazon, but on Web3, you own what you make. And I think we're going to go out very strongly with a message that says, hey, from a career perspective, this is a good career step for you. And here's how you do it. And Algorand is the easiest way to basically get started on a blockchain.
So don't develop on quicksand.
Don't develop on quicksand.
I really,
own what you make.
That's catchy. That's catchy. I really do like that. I do.
And so we're going to We Are Developer conference in Berlin in next month, and that'll be like a big message that we have out there.
Amazing.
And so we're excited about that. And it's a big opportunity for us too, because like for instance,
probably a good sign that the chief marketing officer is the person that's getting me the most hyped about the project. Yeah, that's good.
Is at those typical Python developer conferences, we're the only blockchain
This
there.
is the first interview
and
where
so
I'm like,
we really
okay,
can
let
stand
me
out with our message
pay a little
and
more
with our,
attention here. What's
approach.
going on?
So I'm very excited about that.
Also, tapping into that pool of 8 million developers, I can only imagine, you know, a year or 2, 3 years down the road, the new projects, dApps, everything that will be built on Algorand in the future. Very interesting to think about that. I also, you know, you kind of hinted towards, you know, a marketing push strategy for the second half of this year to raise awareness. Any insight into that?
Yeah. So the first thing that we did is we refreshed our brand, and
I'm just looking for a Sui. I wanted to hold this level. Where are we at? $3.06. If we lose that, my little pattern's going to get screwed up. But I'm hoping, I would love to see pump, slow draw down, bounce. That would be sick. We'll see what happens.
So you've seen that we launched a completely new website. We have new messaging out there. And so those are kind of the foundational elements. And so we're now working on a broader awareness campaign to lift the profile of Algorand. And for us, the core component of that is really the ecosystem. And it's really the projects that we've been working with. And we really want to put them on a pedestal and show the huge variety of projects that are out there and all the things you can actually do with the Algorand blockchain. And that's going to be the core of the campaign, is really lifting up and like amplifying the work that all of our projects are doing.
Definitely. And everyone, if you want to check out the new Algorand website, make sure you click the link right down there in the description if you want to check it out. There's a new palette. You're playing with the shapes off the Algorand A.
Exactly.
A lot of really creative stuff. I really like that part of the speech there. You know, so everybody, I'm kind of going to stop the show here. Stop the show. All right? Stop the show. Keep it rolling, though. We have an announcement to make. Me and you.
Oh, yes, we do.
I'm leaving this part. I'm leaving it in.
I already forgot that.
I hope you don't forget to get on your plane, Mark.
No.
Don't forget to get on the plane, Mark.
Yeah, I know. We do have an announcement to make. Go ahead.
So, on August, big announcement, on August 15th through the 17th at the Rare Evo conference at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada, I will be interviewing Mark, the new CMO of Algorand, on the main stage at the conference.
I'm so looking forward to that.
Have you ever been to Vegas?
I have been to Vegas, yes.
Okay, just check. Yes,
I've been to Vegas. Have you?
Of course. We'll definitely, maybe we'll go play some cards or hang out around. But I'm certainly looking forward to that interview. And there are a couple other questions in my mind right now, but I'm going to put a couple of them in my pocket and save them for August. So everybody, make sure if you want to get tickets to the Rare Evo, there is also a link in the description for that conference as well. Really looking forward to that interview with you.
Me too.
Live at the Caesar's Palace. That's going to be awesome. So for my final question for you, Mark, it's Algorand's 5th birthday. Happy birthday, right, Algorand. And, if there is a cake in front of you and there's all the candles and you shut your eyes and you made a wish and you blew the candles out, what would be your wish for Algorand?
So my wish would be that we talked about the bubbles, the 30,000 Web3 developers, the 8 million Python developers. My wish is that for within 2 years, that's reversed. And the 8 million developers are developers on Algorand.
Amazing. Well, everybody, let's hope Mark's wish comes true. Mark, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to having another interview with you in Las Vegas. Everybody out there.
Okay, absolutely incredible commercial. God darn, best crypto commercial I've ever seen. Really fantastic. Well done on that one. So you got to have some trust or some excitement about him leading the way for marketing, because that really is great evidence he's doing a good job. My bullishness has increased slightly after watching that. Let's do one more video while we're here today, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But this one, the future of Algorand, another short video here. Hopefully this Sui
Hey,
trade will
what's up?
play
This
out.
is Zach
Start to
here
pump,
at
keep
the
pumping.
Genzio Media House with Min. Super excited to be here today. I'll let you introduce yourself, but how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. So my name is Min. I lead ecosystem at Algorand Foundation. I'm psyched to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, we are so excited to be here with you too. And, you know, Algorand has...
Wait a minute, what? So she leads the ecosystem at Algorand Foundation. I guess that's the company? Or is that the actually, like, not the business part?
Really long-term partner for us. We're super stoked for Decipher coming up. So many great activations, events, and things really going on in the ecosystem. So before we kind of dive in, I'd love to learn kind of a little bit more about what that role really means, and maybe a little bit about your background and how that kind of maybe informed how you lead in this position.
Yeah. So I've been in tech for almost all my career. And so I sort of approach this, and I've actually done, big companies. I've launched my own startup, I've tried and failed to launch my own startup. And so I really approach this role thinking about, well, first of all, what does growing an ecosystem mean, right? It really means getting developers to come build on Algorand. And then it really means helping these developers be successful entrepreneurs. And then it really means helping these companies that they build reach, sort of takeoff velocity, right? That you want them to become really successful. And so I approach it from my experience in building products, my experience in launching new businesses and launching new products. So it's about like helping them figure out how to be successful in growing their business and growing their products.
I mean, I think that's really important, and ecosystem support is really what helps developers decide where they want to build and communities where they want to stick around, honestly. How do you think Algorand differentiates itself in this way, and how do you kind of see your role in that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part for anybody that's built a startup is the initial bootstrapping of it, right? And the initial bootstrapping just takes so much care. You need to really be thoughtful about how you start your company, what you're building, how you're going to get your first customer, how you're going to launch it. I think, and we know that that's the hardest part for anybody building in a newer ecosystem. And so the way that we approach it, and I think it's very unique, is the attention and the care and the support that we give founders and developers, and helping to make sure that they have what they need, not just financial support, but sort of this, we call it the bear hug, although I think now that we're out of the bear market, we need to rethink that name a little bit. But it's really kind of giving them the holistic support across everything they need to launch and bootstrap a startup.
I mean, I think that's really important because, I mean, we need companies to, build this industry. What kind of companies or projects are you sort of seeing built, and like, what are you excited about in terms of ecosystem projects?
Yeah, we have all of the fun DeFi projects. We have NFT projects, but we also have some really exciting sort of real world asset use cases on
Here's
Algorand.
a dump now. Three impulses, one, two, three. Third impulse only made it up to the half. Dump.
Have heard us talk about is Lofty, which
I was gonna say I love it's so cool.
They are so great, and every time I talk to Jerry and the team, they're doing new things. So they started off doing. They basically fractionalize residential rental properties, right? So you and I can own a share of a property in Florida and get rental income. But they have now launched an AMM for these properties, these token holders. So you can now have a secondary market, as a token holder. So they just keep innovating. Not only are they bringing...
So that's the project we heard about before.
Like traditional ideas into the Web3 space and making ownership and lowering the barrier for entry for folks like us, but they're also innovating on top of that. So I think like those kind of projects really get me super psyched.
I think that's really cool, and I had seen that online, and I think in their Twitter, and I think it's really, really amazing what they're building at Lofty.
Yeah,
that's really cool. Can you talk maybe about why you think they decided to build on Algorand and maybe some of the
Good question.
Key factors
Who
of
is
the
this guy?
blockchain that
You're getting a
make
follow,
RWAs
dude. Good
like
question.
a perfect kind of
Gen Zio.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are a couple of inherent aspects about Algorand that makes it really scalable for these kind of real world use cases. I mean, the finality piece, the speed, and the throughput, of course, makes it a very reasonable and practical choice. But for Lofty, one of the things that Jerry
Instant finality is really freaking cool. But I mean, I've just heard a lot of people say that already, and it just hasn't been true to their project. So, when I hear instant finality for Algorand, I just don't trust it. If it's a reality, that's amazing. I just don't. I expect there to be some stipulation to that, or it only works in this situation or whatever. Maybe that if that's true reality to the platform, that's great, really fantastic, definitely something special. And Sui, don't lose that level. You're gonna break my pattern. I already broke it. Pattern's gone. Trade's not happening, or maybe it's gonna happen later. Bummer. Let it set up again.
mentioned, I remember, was he said, when he started building on Algorand, it just worked.
Bummer.
Even though it was a new language that the team had to learn. I think at the time it was still teal and PyTeal. He just said that once you sort of built the smart contracts, it just worked, and the network was just so fast. So I think everything about kind of how how everything was just very. It just worked.
I mean, that's the best way you can ask
it. It just worked. Yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, that's kind of like when you pick up an iPhone or something, it just works, right? Or good technology.
Right. It was just like there was nothing that, there was no concerns. It was just great.
Awesome, and I think that's really, that's what you would want them to say, and that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Sort of in your role with the ecosystems, like how do you interact with, let's say, a project like Lofty? Like, what's your sort of relationship like with these companies, not only now, but kind of going back to the beginning, and how has it kind of evolved as the company has grown?
Yeah, it has definitely. I mean, the role of the foundation and the relationship that we have with the projects building has certainly evolved over. I've been at the foundation now for a year and a half, and so it's evolved even during the time that I've been here. And I'd say, what we used to, as give grants to entrepreneurs to build, and then we kind of let them go and and see what they can do. I think over the last year and a half, we wanted to play sort of a more active role, sort of in the trajectory of a startup. So when a founder has an idea and they want to build on Algorand, we want to put them in touch with our DevRel team to really help them understand the best practice for building smart contracts, for minting assets, for building the infrastructure, for which tools to be using. And then once they've built once they've built the product, and they want to now sort of test this product with users, we want to pull in our marketing team, pull in our communities team to really help them find sort of that product market fit for the product. And then once they have the product in the market, our ecosystem success team really helps to make sure, hey, if there are certain incentives, certain ideas that we can do collectively across the ecosystem to help them even grow bigger, we would do that as well. So what we've learned is that it is hard to launch a company, in general, in Web 2, Web 3. And then it's even harder to launch it on Web 3 because it's new. And then it's even harder to launch on Algorand because we are a smaller ecosystem, right? And so I think what that indicates to us is we just have to be more active, throughout the process, and just be there to support these projects however we can. And then, of course, there's the financial element as well, as we have Algorand Ventures, which invests in startups that are building on Algorand as well.
Awesome. And has that Algorand Ventures has it invested in Lofty AI, for example, or?
Yes, we have last year. Yeah.
No, that's super cool, and it's awesome because I remember, obviously we talked about this. I worked at OKX, and I did we listed Algorand while I was there.
Nice.
And I got to work with some of the team, and I remember I during the listing process, I got to do a bunch of research on Algorand, and one of the things I thought was really cool was sort of the real world aspect part of it, and that was back in like 2020. So it's
Yeah.
like RWAs and DPIN, essentially before people knew what that was.
Right.
It was that terminology.
Right. It was before we came up with the nomenclature for the terminology for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Algorand was already doing that.
Yeah,
Totally. Had that kind of capability. So
Yeah.
I guess kind of now as you've seen a resurgence of DPIN, I guess it's always
Yeah.
been the, kind of the branding. Like, how does Algorand sort of see that as like one of the original sort of proponents?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, we it's so, we want to double down on it, but not because it's resurging, to be honest, right? It's only because we know that our technology is particularly well suited for something like this, right? I mean, where else can you mint, tens of millions of assets on a chain and not worry about how long it's going to take, how much money it's going to be in, and whether it's going to break? And so I think we just know that our tech is very well positioned to help us win in this space. And we actually do have other projects that are doing really great stuff in the real world asset space. We have AgriToken, as you know, right, where we tokenized tons of grains. We have actually TravelX, which is, it's not a, we actually issue airline tickets as an NFT, right? So these things in the millions, I think we are now up to 7 million NFT tickets issued. And so the scale at which a lot of these real world sort of use cases require is one that I think we're just so uniquely positioned, to crush. And so we're doubling down in the sense that, we know this is an area that is unique to us. We're going to support as many projects as we can that are building in this space. And, we're not trying to jump on any trends or anything. It's just, it is where we think the future is going to be.
I agree. I mean, I think, and you've been leading that future for many years now. We saw the ad that came out, very, very
fantastic,
viral.
so good.
Yeah. Can you talk about, if you're comfortable, maybe like the inspiration for that and sort of like the thought process?
Yeah, I'm it is not quite my story to tell because this, of course, is, Mark, our new CMO, was sort of the brainchild behind it. But I can share a little bit of how this all started, which was it came from, it was inspired by Governor Hat. And then Governor Hat had this idea of like, how cool would it be to to do this idea of like a checkout with all these different assets that you try to pay, and then like they all try to fit and they all fail, and then you have Algorand come in and smooth sailing. And so we kind of took that idea, and then Mark, having done a lot of this stuff when he was at Google, had this agency that he used to work with, and he just put it together, and we wanted community members to be a part of it. John, of course, with all of his, his bashing of Solana, should be stuck in the Solana line. So I think it was a lot of these, it was just very organic how it happened. And, I think what's beautiful about it is there's a big community component. We have Rich Flares that, showed up on it, and it was really nice. And I've actually gotten messages from folks outside of our ecosystem being like, whoa, both good and bad, right? Like it certainly hit a nerve. And so like I've gotten some messages from people being like, what is this? But I think it's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
People are talking about it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And it's fun. I thought it was funny. The more I watch it, the funnier it gets.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole point, right? It's supposed to be engaging to people, and it brings people in, and then they dig into the technology.
Yeah, and also, in our conversation about this whole Algorand is uniquely positioned to help these real world solutions scale. It's kind of a really good example of that. Like payments, you want that to happen instantaneously. You can't wait for it to fail. And so I think it's a great example of how we can really, how Algorand really shines.
And it is amazing to use the technology, even if minting an NFT or something like that, because it's instant. And
yeah.
We had that.
And it's final.
Yeah.
And it's final. You don't have any concerns about, did that go through, Yeah.
Perfect. We're at Consensus here, super cool, in Texas. what kind of is the plans for Algorand at Consensus? Like, why is the foundation here? What are you sort of looking to do?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been really focused on this year is one of the things that we're really focused on this year at the foundation is interoperability. Like, how do we make sure, we of course know what's so great about
I'm being teased to go back into this
we also know that
trade.
in order for us to be
It's not
successful,
a perfect pattern for me.
projects building on Algorand to be successful,
But I do
we
think
have to
I
be
think
part
Bitcoin's
of a
going to
larger
pump from here.
ecosystem, right? And that's what Consensus
I
is
could
all
be
about.
wrong.
All these new, fun, innovative projects
I think
that are
we're breaking up.
building on different chains, different tools, different protocols are here, and we need to figure out the best way to work with some of the important platforms out there, extend our ecosystem such that it makes our projects and our startups successful as well. So we really want to kind of just like meet with the cool projects that are building here and figure out how we can work with them and really help extend our ecosystem.
Do you think, like, what are your experiences with the actual event, like, of Consensus? Obviously, we're a media partner, so
Yeah.
they share out a lot of our content.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think, I guess, Consensus has been so successful, or, building this kind of environment?
This is only my second time at Consensus, but from what I've sort of seen, I think they do a really nice job of teasing out big, hard topics at the high level, and then they also create a lot of opportunities for individual sort of like communities to really get together and gather. And so I think they do a nice job of like the high and then the low together. So I think that's why, because there's always something for everyone, and I think everybody appreciates that.
Awesome. And I want to take it back to something you said a second ago. You said talk about interoperability, and that word gets thrown around a lot now. Can you explain really what that means to Algorand?
Yeah, it's both ways. So I can give you an example. So for Para Wallet, which is one of our biggest wallets, most used wallets in Algorand, we're doing a lot of work to make it interoperable with other wallets, in the sense that the standards that we use, so BIP32 and BIP39, for example, are standards that all other wallets and other ecosystems are using, and therefore it makes it easier now for Para, once this is not yet live, but it will be in the next couple of months. Once we adopt those standards, we can then add other, if we wanted to, right? You can add accounts from other chains and vice versa. Might be much easier for other wallets to then add accounts from Algorand as well. So to me, that's interoperability, because that means you make it easier for other ecosystems
What does that
to
mean?
tap into Algorand.
What do you mean they count?
And then there are, that's on the product level. And then there are sort of things that we want to do, and
Guy's name.
Dave and who
Yeah, that's a good question for me, dude.
Is
I don't
really
remember what
focused
your
on
name
this
is,
as well,
but
which is, working
clarify
with
that.
protocols that support Algorand and vice versa, right? How do we support,
I'm going to stop limit entry at 311.
interoperability across various different protocols
311,
to make sure that
45.
our projects are able to work and sort of tap into the
With a
other
3 cent
ecosystems
loss.
as well from a user base.
And just for the industry perspectives, why do you think that's sort of important for the advancement of Web3 and Algorand?
I think if we take that real world use case, real world, sort of use case being a big component of what Algorand is, at the end of the day, users aren't going to know or care what the
Looks like this is
technology
happening. It looks like we're going to pump through. We'll see.
of the tools or the solutions that they're using. So I think technology is almost going to be irrelevant. Like, nobody's going to care if it was built on Solana or Algorand or Avalanche. But what they want is they want it to work, and they want it to
Absolutely.
work everywhere. And so I think that, what's the reason why interoperability is important is that in order for the technology to be working across, I mean, the reality is today there's so many different chains, there's so many different solutions, and like you have to have this wallet for this chain, that wallet for that chain, and that's just not going to work, right, for users. And so I think we just have to build a interoperable sort of layer underneath it, such that the communications across these different chains is smooth and it's intuitive, and it doesn't matter to the user, on the other side. And so I think that's why it's important from a user.
Like the last week, I would be doing a lot of early entries in this trades like this. I like to catch bottoms. That's just my personality. But I would have been entering early here. But Bitcoin keeps fucking me up. So at this point, I am only going to set my stop limit, and I'm going to be taken into the trade if it works. I'm not going to be trying early entries. I've been bitten too many times. We'll see what happens.
Standpoint. And then I just think, I think we can't, I think we have to embrace being connected with all the other innovation and all the other technology that's out there as an ecosystem, as sort of like, philosophically, I think we need to embrace that, because we are ahead of the curve on so many levels with, our state proofs and, having projects that are doing real world assets. But we're not the only ones innovating, right? We know that. And there are others that are doing really great things. And so we have to be part of that.
No, and I think that's really...
Who? Mention them.
That answers the question of how we bring Web3 forward, I think, really well. And I think that we really do need to work together to get this technology adopted. Kind of going into what's coming up next, we have Decipher. Super excited. Can you talk a little bit about Decipher?
Totally. So we're super psyched for Decipher. Decipher is what we're internally calling the retreat, a retreat for our builders. It is very specifically designed to bring everybody that is building on Algorand to one place together, share knowledge, but also share challenges. I think we're gonna do, and we're also playing around with the format a little bit. It's not gonna have a lot of panels, etc. It's gonna be a lot of workshops. It's gonna be very hands-on, because I think this is the year. I think now that we're coming out of this bear market, this is the year for us to really crush it and really build together and really grow. There's so much momentum starting with this, ad that you were just mentioning before. There's just so much buzz and so much momentum happening, and we really think that getting everybody together at Decipher is going to be the right moment for us to all crush it for the rest of the year.
I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there.
Awesome. I'm so excited.
I know. Yeah. I'm excited too. I've never been to Barcelona either, so it's going to be absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess, what do you see as some of the, I guess maybe the key moments that you're hoping will come out of Decipher for these builders? Like when they come home, what are you hoping that they take away, or sort of?
Yeah. One is a couple.
So what I do is I work online and I travel full time, but I don't have an online.
Actually, I just came off of a meeting where we the Decipher update meeting. I came away being like, people are gonna get so inspired.
Oh, awesome!
Inspired by Decipher, because it is. Sometimes you're in the weeds and you're like, well, this is so hard, I can't do this. But when you step back and you just see all the amazing projects and the amazing conversations and the impact that these projects that are building on Algorand are having on the world, I think people are going to come away inspired. People are also going to come away with some real concrete kind of like, oh, I can really do this, and I'm going to try this. One of the things, again, back to this whole startup mentality, is you got to try. You got to put something out there, try, see if it works, and then know if it works, right? So, I want everybody to come away from Decipher being like, oh my gosh, they did this, we should try this. They did that, we should try that. Just like ideas for how to really kind of grow and crush it as a company. And then the third thing is, I think I want people to have fun.
Yeah, that's always a good KPI. Fun is a great KPI, I think.
Yeah.
And should definitely. I mean, people love a good event. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. I really appreciate it. Make sure to follow all of Algorand social media. We're going to be in Decipher in like a month and a half.
Yes, June 26th to 28th.
Wow.
Yes.
We're going to be here
Soon,
in like
so
a
soon.
month,
Yes.
or less. So thank you so much for the amazing interview. It was great to see you again, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's AJ Wrights Crypto. Could not be more excited to get into this.
Well, how long is this next? No, I'm not jumping 43 minutes. I'm calling this a day pretty soon. I can't say that I am feeling the need to sell any DAG to buy some Algorand or anything like that. I can't, I don't have any sense right now that this is like the one that I have to get in right now before we get to the mega pump. I have that feeling with Constellation DAG. I have that feeling. So I guess I'm looking for an American blockchain that is going to make me have a similar level of FOMO that I have with Constellation, that would make me want to trim my Constellation bag or trim another bag. Although I don't think I would sell any Constellation. If I was going to trim any bag of big bag, it would be Quant or VeChain right now. I'm just trying to buy as much Constellation as I can. I'm trying to add most elegant monkey ever. My Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It is what it is. I'm holding what I got. If I get mega pumps, I'll start buying some Bitcoin, but right now I'm not. Yeah, not that the tech is bad, not that the project is inferior or scam or anything like that. I don't see that in any way. It's just, is this the one that the American government or other governments are going to be jumping on? And right now it doesn't seem that way. I'll definitely keep my eyes out. If there's a video or if there's some information that you think I should be aware of that I'm missing, let me know. I'll do another day devoted to Algorand. I'll probably still will anyway, because I'm curious about the project. I like the instant finality. Of course, it's amazing. The transaction, the throughput is amazing. But I want to see partnerships right now. That's what I want to see at this stage in the game. At where we are with the American government and what they're doing, and where we are in the cycle, I want to see partnerships that are already in place, not these small things. I want to see the big stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you want to support my work, I'll put some links down below for a Bitcoin address you can send to. Check out Most Elegant Monkey Ever, the best meme there is. Check out Constellation Tag, my most bullish utility coin. Quant is pretty damn high up there as well, but Constellation is top tier for me. And of course, Bitcoin, the OG, the king. If you're in this game, you're not holding Bitcoin, you're doing something wrong. If you don't know about it, you're doing something wrong. Respect the king. Bitcoin is the king. Till next time. Oh wait, I got this Sui trade. So I'm not saying take this. I've been bitten and I'm an addict. So, I want to trade. I'm just looking for those moments. I'm just trying to be really strict with myself. But I'm looking at this current second. I'm going to be logging off. So like you can't, if you're watching this later, don't do this. But in the way that this currently stands, if we get above 311, I'm buying. And then I'm going to be selling right around here. 316 is my stop loss right here. But this trade could change in a minute, any second. Look, there's a red candle. Let's see what Bitcoin's doing. I do think Bitcoin's going to pump from here. I do think it will. Just short term. I mean ultra short term. I mean like the next 30 minutes will pump with Bitcoin. Still bearish on, let's say, the next few days to week. I would not be surprised to see a stab down to the 90s, 88K. But of course, Bitcoin's going much, much, much higher in the coming months. Stay elegant, everybody.